1998, off Canada's east coast, a modern passenger jet run by one of the world's best airlines catches fire at 33,000 feet.
Swissair 111, we are dumping fuel now, and we must land immediately.
In its final 6 minutes, communications from the cockpit cease.
It's burning already!
Then the plane plummets into the ocean. "229 people are dead. What caused the fire is a mystery."
Many of the vessels reported to the Canadian Navy vessels standing by on scene that they were finding bodies and making repeated requests for more body bags and get the bodies that were
Now,
terrible.
after one of the largest investigations in aviation history, the complete story behind the loss of Swissair Flight 111 can finally be told. It's a wake-up call for the entire airline industry to ensure that what happened aboard Swissair 111 would never happen again.
This accident investigation was a unique opportunity to assess the materials in airplanes.
And the problem is not only just the stuff that can burn, but the fact you can't see it.
When you really have fire on board, the clock is running against you.
September the 2nd, 1998. Swissair Flight 111 prepared to depart New York's JFK International Airport, en route to Geneva, Switzerland. The aircraft was a McDonnell Douglas 11, or MD-11, a model first developed in 1986 as a highly automated, modern replacement for the antiquated DC-10. It was considered one of the most reliable passenger jets in the skies, and Swissair pilots were among the world's best trained.
Okay, after start checklist.
Engine anti-ice.
Not required.
Roger, not required. Auto brakes. Take off.
Swissair 111's pilots were Captain Urs Zimmermann and First Officer Stefan Loew.
Swissair 111, hold short, 31 left.
Zimmermann encouraged an easygoing atmosphere in the cockpit, but he was also known for his by-the-book precision. When not flying, he was an instructor of new pilots for Switzerland's national airline.
Takeoff checklist.
Flaps and slats. Flaps set, 15 degrees.
Set of 15.
On board were 215 passengers, 12 crew, and 2 pilots. Most were French, American, or Swiss. 23-year-old Stephanie Shaw was on her way home to her parents in Geneva.
Stephanie was blessed in many ways. She was physically very attractive. She was an intelligent girl. The reason she went to New York was that she had been invited to become a member of the World Economic Forum, which is based in Geneva, and she wanted to have this trip before she joined. She was a darling, an absolute darling.
8:18 p.m.
Swissair 111 Heavy, clear for takeoff. Cleared for takeoff.
Roger, Swissair 111.
For safety, the Swissair pilots push the throttles forward together, ensuring no single pilot can botch a takeoff.
VR. V2.
Swissair Flight 111 lifted off and made her way northeast, toward the open Atlantic. For the first 15 minutes after takeoff, there was no communication from Swissair 111. It was an unusual, small detail that would later baffle investigators.
Well, it does happen occasionally. They had not yet reached what we call the North Atlantic track system, where then you're not really usually in radio contact. So I thought it was a little abnormal, but it appears it was just nothing more than a mistake in radio frequency. When the guy dialed it in and swapped over the radio, he had put in the incorrect frequency, and evidently just, you know, they didn't make another attempt at contacting someone. It was strange, and I agree with you. It was kind of like, whoa, that's interesting.
Atlantic air traffic is handled by a remote center in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. Almost half an hour after takeoff, Captain Zimmerman made his first communication with Moncton.
Moncton Center, Swissair 111 Heavy, good evening, level 330.
Swissair 111 Heavy, Moncton Center, good evening. Reports of occasional light turbulence at all levels.
Moncton, Swissair.
It was a perfectly normal transatlantic crossing. In first class, Swissair passengers were among the first in the world to have a personalized, in-flight entertainment network. Though now common, the system was an innovation in 1998. Passengers could choose their own movie, browse the internet, and gamble.
They evaluated the market, and they thought that introducing a modern in-flight entertainment system combined with a gambling system, so that passenger actually can use their credit card and gamble during long-range flights, would make them more attractive.
This luxury would be the source of controversy to come.
Smell something?
Yeah, what is that? Go have a look, I'll take the controls.
Roger, you have control.
First Officer Love investigated the area near the air conditioner vent. Harmless smoke traces from air conditioning systems are common on commercial jets.
I don't see anything, Urs, and there's nothing up there now.
You hailed for me, Captain?
Stefan and I were sure we smelled smoke a few seconds ago. Can you smell anything?
I smell it too, yeah.
Could you smell in the cabin before you came in?
No, definitely not.
They agreed that the air conditioner was the likely culprit.
Can't see it or smell it anymore. Air conditioning, is it?
Yeah.
Please close it, thanks.
Behind the sealed panel, the pilots could not see that the problem was getting worse. Less than 45 seconds after smoke disappeared in the cockpit of Swissair 111, it returned. Zimmerman followed Swissair procedure.
There it is again.
He made plans to divert to the nearest place to land.
Find the closest place to land, Stefan.
We'll need the nav charts from the library, also weather data for the area. Boston's close.
It's not doing well at all up there.
Zimmerman radioed air traffic control in Moncton, New Brunswick.
Moncton Center, Swissair 111 Heavy, good evening.
United 920 Heavy, Moncton Center, good evening.
The controller dealt with another aircraft before responding to Swissair.
Other aircraft calling, say again.
Swissair 111 Heavy is declaring pan, pan, pan. We have smoke in the cockpit. Request immediate return to a convenient place, I guess. Boston.
Pan, pan, pan is an international term used to notify air traffic control of an urgent situation. one step below declaring Mayday.
You say to Boston you want to go?
I guess Boston, we need first the weather there. We are starting right turn here, Swissair 111 Heavy.
Swissair 111, roger, and descent to flight level 310.
310. 310, Swissair 111 Heavy.
This is the first interview with one of the air traffic controllers in Moncton.
My name is Bill Pickerel, and on September 2nd, 1998, I was one of two Halifax terminal controllers working the evening shift. The pan in any kind of a special condition is usually dealt with as an emergency, and this in fact was dealt with that way. The aircraft was immediately given priority, and the high-level supervisor initiated a call to the Rescue Coordination Center.
Pickerel's colleague determined that Swissair 111 was just 66 nautical miles from Halifax and 300 from Boston. But Captain Zimmerman had chosen an airport he knew.
A lot of times when you're having a problem, you would rather be dealing with an issue where you're much more familiar with the airport, because that relieves a little stress on you. This is his initial problem. He's sitting there, he's looking up there, and he's trying to think, well, I got smoke here. Now, what does it mean? Let's see, where are we? Where's the closest place I can go to that I can talk to a Swissair mechanic? Boston.
Swissair 111 Center.
Swissair 111 Heavy, go ahead.
Would you prefer to go into Halifax?
Or we better put the mask on.
Stand by.
Realizing their location, Zimmerman decided Halifax was now the best option.
Affirmative, Swissair 111 Heavy. We prefer Halifax from our position.
Swissair 111, roger. Proceed direct to Halifax. Descend now to flight level 290.
Level 290 to Halifax, Swissair 111 Heavy.
A British Airways pilot in the area offered the crew what little help he could.
Swissair 111 Heavy from Speedbird 214. I can give you the Halifax weather if you like.
Swissair 111 Heavy, we have the oxygen masks on. Go ahead with the weather.
It's the 300 Zulu weather.
Swissair 111 commenced its descent to below 30,000 feet. The pilots calm and in control. It would take about 20 minutes to reach Halifax.
80, over.
Roger, Swissair 111 Heavy, we copy 2980.
Swissair 111, you're cleared to 10,000 feet, and the Halifax altimeter is 2980.
Swissair 111 Heavy, 2980 at 10,000 feet.
And Swissair 111, can you tell me what your fuel on board is?
Stand by for this.
Speedbird 1506 is at Tusky, listing out.
Speedbird 1506, roger.
The controller signed off with another aircraft. His jurisdiction was high-altitude flights. As Swissair was on descent to Halifax, he hands over responsibility to Bill Pickerel.
At that point, everything was normal. I gave the pilot an initial descent, and he requested to level off at an intermediate altitude to get the cabin in order for the landing, which I took to mean that they needed to pack away dinner trays and things like that. It was an indication to me that while his situation was unusual, that they weren't considering it as an emergency at that time.
Watch your speed, Stefan. Don't descend too fast.
Roger.
Yes, Captain.
We have smoke in the cockpit here. Have the cabin crew prepare for landing. We'll be setting down in Halifax in about 20 minutes. I'm about to start the checklist here.
Yes, Captain Zimmerman.
Zimmerman had two checklists for smoke in the cockpit. To complete both would take 20 minutes. This was Swissair company policy. In the meantime, Love continued the descent into Halifax.
Stefan, I'll need you to handle the radio while I do this checklist, all right?
119.2 for the Swissair 111 Heavy.
Roger.
Swissair 111 was now at about 25,000 feet. Pickrell advises them to descend to 3,000. But First Officer Love said he'd rather fly at 8,000 until the passenger cabin was cleared.
050.
Swissair 111.
Their attitude underscored the sense of control in the cockpit.
979.
From my point of view, it gave all initial appearances that it should be a fairly straightforward operation, that assuming that everything happened normally, the aircraft would require a minimum of handling to lead them into Halifax.
Swissair 111, you can descend to 3, level off at an intermediate altitude if you wish, just advise.
But Pickrell was concerned the plane was not coming down fast enough.
It appeared that the aircraft might have been a little bit high, and I wanted to ensure that the pilots were aware of how far they were from the airport, how many miles they had to fly, so that they could judge their own descent and make their decision about what they wanted to do.
Roger. At the time, we descend to 8,000 feet, and we are clear at any time to 3,000 feet. I keep you advised.
Okay, can I vector you to set up for runway 06 at Halifax?
Roger. A vector for 6 will be fine. Swissair 111 Heavy.
Swissair 111, roger, turn left heading of 030.
Left heading 030 for the Swissair 111 Heavy.
Captain Zimmerman needed information for the unfamiliar airfield, but his flight bag was out of reach. He summoned the flight attendant to help.
You hailed me, Captain.
For 2 minutes now. I need that flight back there. It's got the approach charts for Halifax. Okay, get back to your crew.
Yes, Captain.
This is your matron at cabin speaking.
The chief flight attendant notified passengers that the flight was being diverted. There was no panic. The plane was flying normally, and there was no sign of smoke in the cabin.
Swissair 111, the localizer frequency is 109.9. You've got 30 miles to fly to the threshold.
We're going to need more than 30 miles.
But still at more than 20,000 feet, Swissair 111 was too high to make a landing in just 30 miles.
The frequency is 109.9 for the localizer.
Okay, roger, 109.9, and we are turning left, heading north, Swissair 111 Heavy. And we've got to dump fuel. Agreed.
So far, communications from Swissair had been calm. Still, Moncton Centre initiated emergency efforts at Halifax Airport. Preparing ground crews for an emergency, Pickrell sought information from the pilots.
Swissair 111, you have time. Could I have your number of souls on board and your fuel on board, please, for emergency services?
Roger. At this time, fuel on board is 230 tons. We have to dump some fuel. May we do that in this area during descent?
Pickrell was surprised to learn so late that Swissair 111 needed to dump fuel.
At that point, it became more of a complicated situation. In fact, with every transmission after that, it became more and more complicated.
Pickrell considered his options for a safe place that wouldn't take the aircraft too far from Halifax. He decided to direct the plane over St. Margaret's Bay, about 30 miles from the airport.
The other choice, if he had said he needed to stay close, was to start the aircraft in a right-hand turn to set him up for any of the other runways. I had to keep him flying in a circular or constant track so that he wouldn't fly back into his own fuel, which would have been not good.
Dumping fuel is standard procedure. A fully fueled passenger jet is too heavy and could break up on landing.
Are you able to take
But co-pilot Love wondered if, given their situation, they might forgo the regulations.
They want us to turn to the south. Should we just forget about dumping and just land?
No, dump it.
Okay, we are able for a left or right turn to the south in order to dump.
I initiated the vector back toward St. Margaret's Bay to start him in that direction. It indicated to me that, again, it wasn't a critical situation on board, that in fact he did have time to be able to go back and dump his fuel over the water.
Swissair 111, roger. Turn left heading of 200 degrees and advise me when you're ready to dump. It will be about 10 miles before you're off the coast. We will still be within about 25 miles of the airport.
Roger, we are turning left, 200. In that case, we are going to descend to only 10,000 feet in order to dump the fuel.
Roger, maintain 10,000. I'll advise you when you're over the water. It will be very shortly.
Roger.
While Zimmerman continued with his checklist, Lerv accidentally transmitted to Bill Pickrell in Moncton.
Are you in the emergency checklist for air conditioning smoke? Yes.
Swissair 111, say again, please.
Sorry, that was not for you. Swissair 111 was asking internally.
Okay.
Airspeed is decreasing below 306. Level off speed here.
Just fly the plane as you see fit, Stefan.
Swissair 111, continue left heading 180. You'll be off the coast in about 15 miles.
Left heading 180, roger. Swissair 111 and maintaining at 10,000 feet.
Roger.
Cabin bus off.
Cabin bus off, roger.
The cabin bus switch knocked out all the lighting in the cabin. It was an indication for the passengers that something was wrong, but hardly alarming.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have temporarily lost the lights in the cabin. Please remain calm. The crew will be coming around with flashlights to assist in landing.
Despite a cockpit filled with smoke, there was still no trace in the passenger cabin.
You will be staying within about 35, 40 miles of the airport if you have to get back to the airport in a hurry.
Okay, that's fine with us. Please tell us when we can start to dump the fuel.
Suddenly, the aircraft sent out a warning that the smoke was a sign of a more serious problem.
Autopilot, disconnect. Copy that, autopilot, disconnect. Swissair 111.
The autopilot disconnected because the plane's computers sensed erratic readings. In the next 90 seconds, those readings went haywire.
11,000 and 9,000 feet.
Swissair 111, you can block between 5,000 and 12,000 if you wish.
One by one, the instruments failed. The calm in the cockpit dissolved.
Copy that. We are cleared between 12 and 5,000 feet. We are declaring emergency now. Swissair 111 at time 0124.
Then the two pilots spoke simultaneously. Combined with other distractions in the control room, Pickrell was unable to hear a critical transmission. Lerv's declaration that they must land immediately.
We are dumping fuel now. We must land immediate.
Swissair 111, just a couple more miles. I'll be right with you.
Roger that. And we're declaring emergency now. Swissair 111.
Missing this transmission is a moment Bill Pickrell relives today.
I'm not sure that it's a feeling that you can adequately describe. I recall reviewing the events of that night 1,000 times to determine if there was something additionally that I could have done, or if there was some mistake that I might have made, or was there any way that I contributed to this? And eventually I was able to come to the point of realization that there wasn't anything that I could have done, that everything that could have was done.
Now there was nothing to do but wait. "30 seconds after declaring an emergency, the pilots of Swissair 111 faced an inferno.
All my screens are down. I'm flying on standby instruments, maintaining 300.
Swissair 111, you are cleared to commence your fuel dump on that track, and advise me when your dump is complete.
Soon after I gave him authorization to commence the fuel dump, there was no acknowledgement. Initially, I wasn't concerned by that because I considered that he was probably doing the fuel dump. He was reviewing a checklist. He was busy doing things. And as per our training, we're told not to bother the pilots in those kinds of situations.
Swissair 111, check. You are cleared to start the fuel dump.
There was no further communication from the aircraft. Six minutes later, residents of Peggy's Cove heard a devastating explosion. No one knew what had happened to 229 people after 6 minutes of silence.
It was probably one of the most helpless feelings that any individual can have, not being able to do anything but just sit and watch the target and hope that it would turn back toward the airport. And of course it didn't.
The following morning, would-be rescuers glimpsed the terrible remains of Swissair 111. Only one body was discovered intact. In Geneva, Ian Shaw had a premonition about his 23-year-old daughter, Stephanie.
That night, the night on which she was due to return, for reasons I can't explain even now, I was restless and I was disturbed, and I slept early and woke while my wife was still awake and asked her if she had had news of Stephanie. No, she had not, but she didn't expect to have news of Stephanie. We knew she was coming on that flight and that she would certainly expect me to be at the airport to fetch her in the morning. I awoke around 6 Geneva time, and on television there was a report of the crash of Swissair 111. And I knew instantaneously that we had lost our daughter.
Air traffic controller Bill Pickrell was in shock.
It's a strange experience. I'm not sure that I can adequately express the feelings, but it's you work to provide a service, and you read about aircraft flying into a mountain or ending up in a swamp in some distant country, but you never expect that it's going to happen in your backyard. And when it does, it's kind of a lonely experience, I guess, in one sense.
The Transportation Safety Board of Canada launched what would become the largest disaster investigation in the nation's history. They only knew Swissair 111 experienced a cockpit fire, but what caused it remained a mystery.
Well, this accident was a challenging one to investigate, in that initially, of course, we had to recover the aircraft from about 55 meters of water, around 185 feet. Of course, it was also in many pieces. As it turns out, it was in a couple of million pieces. So that was the initial challenge. And then after that, of course, when you have so many pieces, you need to determine which are the relevant ones and what are these pieces telling you about what happened and why.
The TSB embarked on a 5-stage plan. First, divers were deployed to survey the wreckage. They discovered that the plane was smashed into millions of pieces. But as the autumn weather worsened, the risks to divers increased. At this rate, the salvage would take years to complete. Stage 2. With help from the United States Navy, remote-operated vehicles began a more detailed search. The ROVs helped investigators survey the site. But the question remained: how to recover tiny pieces of twisted metal from the bottom of the sea?
We have to go through little bits of airplanes, little pieces. In Swissair, we've had about 2 million pieces of airplane, and we pretty much almost had to look at them all because we had to discredit certain things, terrorists, bombs, various other types of faults.
The TSB's investigators finally got the breakthrough they'd been seeking: the black boxes. Recordings of cockpit and computer data told investigators that everything on the plane was working perfectly until the last few minutes.
When the crew declared the pan, that they had smoke in the cockpit, after going through all of these parameters, we found no anomalies or no problems in any of that flight data that suggested there was a problem with the aircraft. So this led us to believe that the crew had a relatively operational aircraft. Aside from the smoke in the cockpit that they noted, everything else appeared to be working fine. And as they were making their plan to descend the aircraft, they experienced a series of systems failures that were in rapid succession and exponential.
Copy that. Autopilot disconnect. Swissair 111, we must fly manually now.
Mike Poole's CVR team then faced a serious setback. The last 6 minutes on both flight recorders were missing.
You're losing systems rapidly on the airplane in that 90-second period that things are happening very fast. And one of the last things we know about was the 2 recorders went offline. So the fire has presumably breached the lines, breached the sources to these recorders and has stopped them.
With the failure of the black boxes, investigators were no closer to learning how or where the fire started on Swissair 111. Stage 3. Barges were deployed to scour the seabed for evidence. One by one, sad remnants of the airplane reached the surface. Her engines were recovered. Then the landing gear. These were among the largest pieces of Swissair 111 to be recovered. The rest were mere fragments, dredged up in a painfully slow process. Stage 4. A nearby military hangar provided a makeshift lab for the growing team of forensic investigators. Representatives from the American NTSB, Boeing, Swissair, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police joined in the search for answers. Pieces of Swissair 111 arrived by the truckload, organized into various categories for analysis. Soon the hangar was stacked to capacity with the biggest jigsaw puzzle in aviation history. All the investigators knew for sure was that an initially small cockpit fire suddenly turned to catastrophe. The team sorted through nearly 155 miles of wiring retrieved from the wreckage of Swissair 111. Here, the first real clue: evidence of electrical arcing. Scorch marks on metal revealed that the source of the fire was in the back of the cockpit, directly behind the first officer. By examining the aircraft's wiring plans, investigators found a likely suspect: the entertainment system in first class.
The system had some major deficiencies. It was getting very hot. It drew a lot of power. And thereby, for example, raising the cabin temperature considerably, because it was always running. They did not install a simple off switch, nor did they install appropriate cooling systems to cool the system down.
The TSB's investigators finally thought they had the breakthrough they'd been seeking.
Our report indicates that there was a design flaw in the way the in-flight entertainment network installed in the first class and business class sections of the aircraft were installed integrated into the electrical system of the airplane.
When Captain Zimmerman threw the cabin bus switch, all power to the cabin should have been switched off. But the entertainment system remained on, overheating.
If you'd ask most pilots, they would say, well, if I push the cabin butt switch, it's going to turn off the things behind the cockpit. It's going to isolate that electrically for me so that I don't have to worry about that, and then I can just concentrate on those things that might affect me flying the airplane. Well, as it turns out, that this switch was kind of bypassed in this case for this IFIN, or entertainment system.
Swissair immediately disabled the entertainment systems on the rest of its fleet, and the US National Transportation Safety Board ordered an inspection of cockpit wiring on all MD-11s. Unfortunately, this simple solution proved insufficient.
By the time that cabin switch was turned off, the fire was well underway, and so that had no real bearing on the initiation or propagation of the fire in the Swissair 111 aircraft.
But investigators determined that the problem with the entertainment system alone could not have brought down Swissair 111. The search for answers continued. Stage 5. Undaunted, the TSB reconstructed the MD-11 from the wreckage. A wireframe mock-up they called the jig provided a spine for placing tiny pieces back where they once belonged. The reconstruction revealed that the fire spread with alarming speed from the cockpit back into the first-class galleys. Some metal showed heat damage from temperatures as high as 600 degrees centigrade. As the investigation continued, some argued that the actions of the pilots may have contributed to the disaster. Some experts charged that Zimmerman and Love's by-the-book approach may have cost them their lives.
Swissair 111 was asking internally.
Some operators emphasized in a very early stage, land as soon as possible, and then if you have time, go into the checklist. Others said, here's the checklist, and at the end of the checklist, if that doesn't help, then land as soon as possible. Pretty contradictory to basic flying instructions where student pilots learn at a very early stage that whenever you have smoke, you have a fire, and fire means land as soon as possible.
Emergency light switch on. Emergency light switch on.
Unfortunately, in this case, the way the checklist was written, it didn't identify that now start towards the divert. It started more on let's try to see if we can solve the problem. And so now all of a sudden you're taking on a problem that just kind of crept up on you. You weren't expecting it.
We're going to need more than 30 miles.
But the TSB considered the timeline. Investigators determined that Swissair 111 would not have made Halifax Airport under any circumstances. There just wasn't enough time.
09er, 0.9er.
In our calculation, we showed that starting at the ideal descent point from 33,000 feet, which was at about 10:14 p.m. that night, it would take some 13 minutes to get the airplane onto the ground, which would take us to 10:27 p.m. By 10:24, the systems in the aircraft were starting to deteriorate. So we believe that under these circumstances, the crew would not have been able to successfully land the airplane under those conditions with the amount of time that they had.
Whatever caused the fire on Swissair, it happened at a lethal speed. The mystery remained. A year passed, then another ambitious operation began. The TSB hired a sophisticated Dutch salvage ship, Queen of the Netherlands. The vessel has a gigantic vacuum system, capable of dredging even the tiniest pieces of Swissair 111 from the ocean floor. A mixture of seawater, silt and aircraft were pumped into the ship's hold. This cargo was then pumped into a specially constructed reservoir on shore. When the water drained away, investigators found another 1 million pieces of the aircraft. Any one of them may have held the clue to what caused the catastrophic fire. The painstaking sorting once again resumed. Finally, after 15 months, they found what they'd been seeking: a single faulty wire.
We looked at all of the possible sources of heat that might start a fire in that area. And in this instance, we did discover a wire that arced in that way. And right next to it was some very flammable material called metallized polyethylene terephthalate covering material that covers the insulation blankets.
This polyethylene insulate, which lined the MD-11, is common on commercial airlines worldwide. It has passed the industry's flammability tests that require materials to self-extinguish after a reasonable period of time. The investigation now took an abrupt turn. Instead of seeking the cause of the fire, the TSB now focused on the flammable materials that fueled it.
This thermal-acoustical material that was in this aircraft was very flammable. Even though it passed a test, it does sustain and it does propagate flame. So this investigation did focus on the flammability of materials and the requirement to reassess the criteria that is used to certify materials, not just thermal-acoustical insulation blanket material, but also other materials that goes into aircraft, much of it in hidden areas.
Investigators now had their answer. A wire arced in a closed space behind the cockpit. The arc ignited the insulation, which in turn lit other materials, such as foams and plastics. The pilots could not sense how quickly the fire intensified, but 14 minutes after they declared pan, 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 the fire disabled all electronics in the cockpit. The black boxes went dead. A forensic examination also shed light on the desperate final minutes in the cockpit. Love was in his seat. Captain Zimmerman was not, likely fighting the fire and probably dead before impact.
The first officer was probably trying to find a place where he could put this big airplane. He just didn't have a lot going for him. He didn't have a lot of instrumentation left. And I'm sure he was looking for something, some indication that would give him an idea of where he could put the airplane down, maybe even ditch the airplane.
What is known is that the first officer was in his seat. Whether he was unconscious, conscious, maybe had severe degree burns on his skin, it's not known. We know the captain was not in his seat, so very likely he was trying to fight the fire. That the checklists were found molten together, the pages, indicates that they were used to fight a fire.
At 10:30 Halifax time, Love shut down engine 2. Investigators determined that he probably received a warning the engine was on fire. Chillingly, it proved that Love was alive a minute before impact. They could not determine whether the passengers were aware of the fire, at least until the very final moments.
There were traces found of soot and smoke extending as much far to the business class overhead area. Whether the passengers have smelled the smoke, it's not known. DNA analysis showed that they had no residue in their body.
The aircraft hit the water with a force of 350 Gs. The TSB spent 4.5 years and $40 million analyzing the wreckage of Swissair 111, the largest air disaster investigation in Canada's history. Their conclusion: flammable materials do not belong on commercial aircraft.
The rate of progression in this airplane, I think, surprised us and surprised others, and that's why we emphasize, again, the importance of raising the bar on the flammability standards for materials used in airplanes.
Ian Shaw waited 4 years for the report to reveal the fatal flaw that took the life of his daughter. The truth has not diminished his anger at Swissair.
There has to be accountability. If you are involved in wrongdoing, you must be held accountable. And you must declare your sense of responsibility. Otherwise, you are hiding. And you are hiding, in this case, behind the flag of Switzerland. I think it's unbelievable.
In the aftermath, Swissair decided to remove the flammable insulate from its entire fleet. They also made changes to checklist procedure, reducing response time in a cockpit smoke emergency.
Swissair did something very interesting. They modified their entire Swissair MD-11 fleet according to all these findings. They built in cameras and smoke detectors, even into hidden areas, where pilots have a little TV monitor and they can see whenever there is a smoke warning, which makes them all help gain time. And that's the most important when you have when you have a fire.
But plagued with financial problems, the mighty Swissair shocked the industry when it declared bankruptcy in October 2001. The flammable insulation that set Swissair ablaze remains in 2/3 of commercial airplanes today, but not for very much longer.
The metallized polyethylene terephthalate material has been essentially banned from aircraft, and the criteria to certify that kind of material for use in airplanes has been worked on. It has not been put into law as yet, but we look forward to that being done, so the criteria is more stringent.
The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has given a deadline of 2005 to remove the material from all commercial aircraft. This major overhaul is designed to ensure that what took place on Swissair 111 will never happen again.
The industry is trying to remove it, but I don't think they're removing it as quickly necessary as they could. There's always that battle. How expensive is it to do something that's replacement, or are you going to replace it in an airplane you're going to throw away in another couple years? We have to live within certain economic realities.
For Ian Shaw, losing his daughter so suddenly and violently has left a permanent emotional scar. He left his wife and his wealth behind in Geneva and now runs a modest restaurant in Nova Scotia in view of the sea where his daughter died.
Why would I come here to this particular point in Nova Scotia? A lot of people have said, oh yes, we fully understand you want to be close to your daughter and the point where the plane crashed. That is no part of my being here. Swissair ripped out of me any possibility of proximity to my daughter. I found a comfort in the awareness of the presence of the eternal ocean, the ocean which has been going backwards and forwards for many, many, many thousands, millions of years. I came here because I had to. I can't give a fully rational declaration to you of why I came here. I can only say to you, I am in the right place for the wrong reasons.
Buenas noches, senor. American 965 leaving 23...
In 1995, only days before Christmas, an American Airlines Boeing 757 is on its final approach to Cali, Colombia.
Cali approach, American 965.
The pilots are calm and relaxed. They don't know they've made a terrible mistake.
965, 9,000 feet.
They've strayed more than 10 miles off course and no longer have a clue where they are.
Oh, shit! Hold up, baby.
In complete darkness, the jet carrying 163 passengers and crew is heading into mortal danger.
Okay.
I think we knew that something imminent was around the corner.
Up, baby! More! Up!
Flight 965 crashed into a 9,000-foot mountain. The crash reverberated throughout the aviation industry. How could one of the most technologically advanced aircraft in the world, equipped with a state-of-the-art navigational system and flown by some of the most skilled pilots, crash into the side of a mountain? On December the 20th, 1995, American Airlines Flight 965 is preparing to depart Miami International Airport.
Make our slot, but, well...
Its destination is Cali, Colombia. Flight 965 is scheduled to leave at 4:40 p.m., but has already been delayed for 30 minutes at the gate to allow for connecting passengers.
Surely gonna call us any second now.
The Doosan's only just made it.
In Miami, they tell us that we have to rush because the plane gonna leave to Cali very soon. Definitely, we were very happy because we know we're gonna fly that night.
So you made it just in time. Just in time. You won't believe it. Go from New Jersey to Miami. We almost missed the flight.
Mercedes Ramirez, along with her mother and father, managed to get on the flight at the last minute.
We were on standby, so we weren't sure if our names were going to be called off to actually get on that flight we heard our names and we were excited because like, yes, we got on the flight.
But it's very old American.
Flight 965 finally leaves the gate at 5:14 p.m., 34 minutes late. But the problems aren't over yet. As they taxi towards the runway, the tower informs them of yet another delay.
American 965, stand by.
Heavy seasonal traffic clogs the runways, and they're forced to wait another hour and 20 minutes on the tarmac.
Ready, that's all there is to it. And
American 965.
Finally, 2 hours late, Flight 965 is cleared for takeoff.
27 right. Fly the runway heading. Clear for takeoff.
Merry Christmas. Cleared for takeoff. 27 right. American 965. You do a great job. Good night.
Captain Nicholas Tafuri, aged 57, is in charge of Flight 965. He's one of American Airlines' premier pilots, with more than 13,000 hours of flying experience, over 2,000 of them in the 757. He'd flown to Cali only 6 days earlier.
200, the heading. Climb to 16.
That's 16 American 965.
At the controls is First Officer Donnie R. Williams, age 39. Although he's been flying for American for 9 years, Flight 965 is his first trip to Cali. It's the holiday season, and the plane is filled with passengers starting their Christmas celebrations.
Everybody on that plane was either going back home for the Christmas holidays to visit their families, so I think everybody was just happy and excited to go back.
The day of the flight, December the 20th, is a very special day for passenger Mercedes Ramirez. Mercedes is a university student from Missouri. It's her 21st birthday, and this trip is a gift from her parents.
And usually we spent Christmas in Kansas City at home, but they wanted to do something special, and we had never spent the holidays with our family in Colombia, so it was a big deal for us. Since we flew standby, I couldn't sit with both my mom and my dad all in one row, so my mother and I were seated next to each other. I was by the window, she was in the middle, and then there was a passenger who was about my age who was in the aisle seat, and then my father was in another row behind us. And so, nothing out of the ordinary at all, just a normal flight.
19-year-old Mauricio Reyes is sitting beside Mercedes' mother. Reyes is a student at the University of Michigan. Gonzalo Dusan and his wife Nancy and their 2 children, Michelle and Gonzalo Jr., are seated nearby.
We were very excited because the first time, we're going with my family to pass, Christmas over there in Cali. We wanted to see our families, members, brothers, sisters, to see our city again.
Two hours and 45 minutes into the flight, the plane is cruising at an altitude of 37,000 feet and on a pre-programmed flight path heading towards Cali's airport.
36 miles.
They're flying a Boeing 757, a state-of-the-art airplane equipped with highly sophisticated computer systems. When programmed with the appropriate data, the onboard computer, known as the flight management system, can control the aircraft from takeoff to landing. It can be a pilot's best friend, or in the case of Flight 965, their worst nightmare. An awkward moment an hour before their scheduled arrival in Cali makes Mercedes Ramirez change seats.
My mother had been talking to the college student who was next to her, and I think she was trying to kind of set me up with him because she kept on saying, oh, well, my daughter's in college and my daughter's this and my daughter's that. So I was very embarrassed. So I got up from my seat and moved to the row behind us, and I sat with my father.
The seemingly trivial decision will prove to be her lifesaver. It's a clear, moonless night with visibility more than 6 miles.
And that's just how it works. That's our scenario.
But Captain Tafuri is now getting concerned about their arrival time in Cali.
Debrief, 1 hour sign in, and you can't move that up at all because it's an FAA thing.
FAA regulations require a minimum number of hours on the ground before the cabin crew can fly again. The plane and its crew are scheduled to leave Colombia the following morning, but the unexpected delays in Miami means the plane may be late into Cali and not able to leave on time tomorrow.
When you want descent, let me know a few minutes early in case there's a language problem, okay?
Sure.
Any further delays will jeopardize their return flight the next day.
Well, let's see, we got 136 miles to the VOR and 32,000 feet to lose and slow down to boots, so might as well get started.
If they land within the next 25 minutes, they'll beat the deadline.
All right, sir. And if you'd keep the speed up on the descent, it'd help us too, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Gonzalito, let your sister sit beside the window.
Gonzalo de San's children quarrel over the window seat, not knowing that the consequences will be dire.
And I remember I told them before Cali, when the plane started to lose altitude, so we're going to see the valley, the city, very nice with a lot of lights on it, because usually by December, by Christmas time, they decorate, you know, the mountains with different colors, lights, and everything. Then they start to fight for the window side.
And I was fighting with my brother, Gonzalito. We were fighting for the window.
Okay, Gonzalito, let your sister have a chance by the window.
And I'm like, oh, I wanna see the lights, I wanna see the airport. And he got mad.
Okay, Michelle, you go sit by the window. Go sit with your cousin. Good boy, Gonzalito. Okay, Michelle, take a look at the lights. Let's come sit beside me. Come sit. We're almost there. Michelle, can you see the lights outside the window?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
We have begun our descent for landing at Cali. It's a lovely evening.
As we'd expected, we'll pass a shower or two on the way in.
This lovely evening is about to end. In 30 seconds, the pilots will make the first of a series of mistakes, which will result in the death of nearly everyone on board. American Airlines Flight 965 is on its final descent, roughly 63 miles from Cali. Cali's Aragon Airport is situated at the end of a long valley. On both sides of the valley are towering mountain ranges that stretch to almost 14,000 feet. It's a formidable sight.
One of these nuts done?
No, thank you.
You want your water? You want to wait until we get on the ground about your water?
Oh, I'll wait for the ground.
To guide the plane on its proper pre-programmed flight path, the aircraft must pass over a series of waypoints. These are generally radio beacons at fixed positions along the route. The plane's computer picks up the signal from these beacons, one after the other, and guides it safely to the destination. Flight 965 is now approaching the waypoint called Tulua. Tuluá is a radio beacon at the head of the valley which leads to Cali. After passing Tuluá, they should fly down the valley and pass over the final waypoint called Rosso. Then they fly past the airport, turn right, and land from the south.
She did really well.
È molto interessante. È molto interessante, sì.
Cali approach, American 965.
American 965, good evening. Go ahead.
Buenas noches, senor. American 965.
Cali Air Traffic Controller Nelson Rivera will oversee the final approach of Flight 965. But he has a problem. Insurgents opposed to the Colombian government have blown up the radar installation. Rivera has no way of knowing where planes are until they radio their position.
The distance, DME from Cali?
Without radar, the air traffic controller must rely on the flight crew to provide the aircraft's distance to the runway.
The DME is 6'3".
The DME is the distance measuring equipment in the Boeing cockpit.
Roger. American 965 is clear to Cali.
Descend and maintain 5,000 feet. Altimeter?
3002. Report Tuluá.
Okay, understood. Clear direct to Cali, VOR, report Tuluá.
Affirmative.
It's a misunderstanding. Captain Tafuri thinks he's being told to fly direct to Cali and forget all about Tuluá. But the controller needs him to report when he passes Tuluá so that he knows where the plane is.
To me, the word directly means that he was authorized to go directly to Cali, that there was no delay. Therefore, he had to inform us of his position in Tuluá, because we don't have radar. I needed him to inform me of that exact location.
Tafuri punches direct to Cali in his computer. Since the plane no longer has to pass over them, all the waypoints between his present position and Cali will now be erased, including Tuluá, the one he's now approaching.
Put direct Cali for you in there. Okay, thank you. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing. Thank you.
And I remember they gave us the order to put the back of the seat straight. I remember that. And everybody was, so happy because we were very close to the city.
The 11 minutes before their estimated time of arrival.
Go ahead, please.
Sir, the wind is calm.
Air traffic control asks the flight crew if they'd like to land on runway 19.
You want to shoot the 19 straight in?
Instead of their planned approach to runway 01.
Yeah, we'll have to scramble to get down. We can do it.
Yes, sir. We'll
need a lower altitude right away, though.
Roger. The American 965 is cleared to VOR DME.
Okay.
The pilots are pleased. Runway 19 is a straight-in approach from the north. They won't have to lose precious time by circling the airport. But there isn't much time. They need to start getting the plane down quickly. Williams deploys the speed brakes. The brakes are flaps on the top of the wings. When they're raised, they reduce lift and increase the plane's rate of descent.
Approach runway 19.
Rosso number 1 arrival. Report.
This split-second decision to land on runway 19 sets off a chain of events that will end in disaster.
Arrival will report VOR. Thank you, sir.
Report Tuluá, VOR.
Report Tuluá.
I gotta give you a Tuluá first of all. You want to go right to Cal or to Tuluá?
I thought he said the Rosso 1 arrival.
Yeah, he did. We got time to pull that out.
Events begin to unravel very quickly in the cockpit. The pilots have to locate the new charts for the approach to 19, enter the new route into the computer, and still fly the plane.
And Tuluá 1 Rosso. Yeah, there it is. See, that comes off Tuluá.
They're getting totally confused. The controller keeps asking them to report when they've passed Tuluá. But having erased it from their computer, they have no idea where it is. Captain Tafuri asks the tower if they can forget Tulua and fly directly to Roseau, their last waypoint before the runway.
Can American Airlines 965 go direct to Roseau?
And then do the Roseau arrival, sir.
Affirmative. Take the Roseau 1 and runway 19er. The wind is calm.
All right, Roseau, the Roseau 1219. Thank you, American 965.
Report Tulua at 21 miles and 5,000 feet.
Okay, report Tulua.
The controller is still asking them to report passing the Tulua beacon. Without radar, he doesn't realize that they're already past it and are speeding down the valley towards the airport. Captain Tafuri now makes another fateful decision. Having decided that they're going to head for the Roseau waypoint instead, he punches R into his computer. The computer database responds by offering a list of more than 10 waypoints to choose from, all beginning with R. Normally, the nearest one, Roseau, would be at the top of the list, but tonight it's not. Captain Tafuri doesn't notice and pushes the execute button. At over 300 miles per hour and descending at a rate of approximately 1,300 feet per minute, Flight 965 begins to veer off on a new and deadly course.
I never imagined that they were deflecting the route in addition to losing altitude. Because I didn't have radar.
In the cockpit of Flight 965, the pilots are completely unaware of what they've done. They're busy studying charts as their plane crosses the mountains into unknown territory. For more than a minute, American Airlines Flight 965 has been turning off its proper course and into the mountains. Captain Tafuri and First Officer Williams suddenly notice that their aircraft is taking them somewhere that they don't want to go.
Let's go right to Tulua, first of all, okay?
Yeah, where are we headed?
17.7.
Captain Tafuri is floundering in the pitch darkness. If he could only find the Tulua waypoint, he could get his bearings. He switches from one computer system to another and then manually enters the radio frequency for the Tulua beacon.
Okay, I'm getting it. 17.7 just doesn't seem right on mine. I don't know why.
Left turn. So you want a left turn back around to ULQ?
Nah, hell no. Let's press on to...
Press on to where, though?
Tulua.
Hopelessly lost, and less than 2 minutes from impact, Tafuri decides to press on with his doomed approach.
Let's go to Cali, first of all, okay? We fucked up here, didn't we?
Yeah.
Go direct CLO. How did we get fucked up here? Come to the right now. Come to the right now.
The pilots don't know it, but when the plane veered off course, it crossed over the mountains. They're now in another valley, parallel with the one they should be flying down. Passengers are completely unaware that in less than 60 seconds, the aircraft traveling more than 210 miles an hour is going to crash.
We're almost there.
It's that fucking Tulua I'm not getting for some reason. See, I can't... Okay, no. Tulua's fucked up.
Okay, yeah.
But I can put it in the box if you want.
I don't want Tulua. Let's just go to the extended center line of...
Which is Roseau.
Roseau.
Well, why don't you just go direct to Roseau then, all right?
Okay, let's...
I'm gonna put that over to you.
They decide to give up on Tulua and make straight for the airport. They don't realize that there's now a wall of mountains between them and Cali.
965 altitude.
965.
9,000 feet.
Roger.
Distance now.
Shit!
The plane's ground proximity warning system is telling them they're about to crash.
965, this is Cali approach. Can you hear me?
He didn't answer.
no me volvió a contestar.
He never answered again.
Easy does it. Easy does it.
I could feel that we were just violently just going up. And I felt like I was in a roller coaster ride or something. And the turbulence was absolutely horrible. And by that time, people were screaming, and everybody knew on the flight that something was very wrong.
Too low. Terrain. Easy does it. Easy does it. Up, baby.
Instinctively, I reached over and I grabbed my father's hand, and I put my head in my lap. In my mind, I just kept on thinking, come on, just straighten it out, straighten it out.
Up, baby. More. Up, up, up.
These were the last words on the cockpit voice recorder.
American 965, this is Cali approach. Can you hear me?
At 9:42 p.m. on its final approach to runway 19,
American 965, can you hear me?
American Airlines Flight 965 seemingly vanishes without a trace.
American 965, this is Cali approach. Can you hear me?
Nunca me había pasado eso, era la primera vez.
I never experienced anything like this before. This was the first time that I lost a plane and the crew was not responding.
Es muy difícil asimilar.
It is very difficult to grasp the moment.
Cuando la aeronave no contesta, uno
When the
mira
plane
hacia
didn't
afuera,
answer,
que nosotros
I
trabajamos
looked
en el
outside from the control tower.
hacia afuera.
I could see from there the sky.
El tiempo estaba muy bueno.
I started to look for the plane. The night was clear, and I thought I could see the plane coming. But in this case, I never saw the plane.
Nunca vi la aeronave.
Moments after the plane's scheduled arrival, airport monitors indicate a 7-minute delay. Friends and family wait with anticipation for the arrival of their loved ones. As the revised arrival time comes and goes, rumors begin to circulate throughout the terminal that air traffic control has lost contact with Flight 965. In an instant, joy turns to shock as cries that the plane has crashed spread throughout the terminal. Locals living near the town of Buga, north of Cali, report hearing a massive explosion. Rescue teams race to the town, which lies near the base of a local mountain range that stretches as high as 10,000 feet. It's now 3 a.m., almost 6 hours after the crash. The first elements of the search and rescue team are trekking up the side of El Diluvio mountain. There are no roads. It's completely cut off. In the midst of tons of twisted and torn metal lies 21-year-old Mercedes Ramirez. Her last memory prior to impact is grabbing her father's hand and the deafening sound from the back of the plane of the tail section striking trees.
The next memory I have is the next day. It's daylight. I wake up and I see the sunlight around me, and I don't know where I am. And what's around me looks like a landfill, like a trash dump. And so as I'm laying there, I'm thinking, where in the world am I?
Mercedes is critically injured with severe internal injuries and a shattered leg.
Help! Is anybody out there?
19-year-old college student Mauricio Reyes also survives the impact and responds to Mercedes' cry for help.
Can you move?
I can try. I'm not sure. My leg is bent backwards.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Okay.
Help me, please.
Okay.
The only way for me to get out was having to drag myself over people. And I remember this lady who I had to drag myself over, and I'll never forget her. Looking back, I think, oh my goodness, that was someone's mom, or that was someone's sister, or someone's wife. But at that time, she was just an object that I needed to get over to get out.
Can you move? Can you stand up?
I think my leg is broken.
Okay, we'll try.
Okay. Okay.
1,
Okay.
2, 3.
And when he lifted me was when the first time I actually felt pain. It just felt like an electrical current going up and down my leg. So he laid me back down, and then he went off to try to find help.
Okay? Okay. Just stay here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Okay. Help! Is anybody out there?
While I was laying there, more of the thoughts that were coming into my mind was, why me? Why did this happen to me?
At first light, the Colombian Air Force starts searching for the crash site. They were unable to leave earlier because they had no night vision equipment. On the ground, rescue teams which had been climbing throughout the night are approaching the summit of El Diluvio.
When I wake up, I start to feel the pain in my back. Then when I hear the sound of the helicopters, I realize something happened. I started to feel panic.
Help me! Someone please help me!
Daddy, I'm here. Papa.
Michelle?
Gonzalo Dusan's 6-year-old daughter Michelle, still strapped in her seat, answers her father's desperate call for help.
Keep talking to me, okay? Michelle?
So I realized that my daughter was alive too. Then I started to crawl to try to look for where the voice of my daughter coming from.
Michelle, please, I'm coming. Where are you?
Dusan struggles to crawl through the broken and twisted cabin to reach his daughter, but she's pinned beneath the wreckage.
Ow! Ow! My leg hurts.
When the plane crashed, my legs, I had my seatbelt on, and I guess the crash was so deep that my legs like speared into the ground. I tried to move myself, but my legs hurt. They hurt really bad. I couldn't pick myself up.
Daddy, it hurts.
Okay, Michelle. I'm going to get some water for you soon and bring it back, okay?
Then I tried to crawl more to try to get out.
Despite a severe back injury, Dusan manages to crawl towards a small open section of the fuselage.
I saw a hole behind me, and I said inside me, I said, God, help me to get out from here.
Help us! Over here! Help us!
When I get up of the fuselage of the plane, I remember my son talked to me.
Gonzalito!
And he say, Father, Father, help me.
Gonzalito!
Despite a desperate search, Gonzalo Dusan is unable to locate his son amongst the wreckage.
Gonzalito!
Realizing there's no way to get off the mountain by foot, the survivors of Flight 965 are still unsure if they will ever make it. The temperatures have fallen dramatically, and without protective clothing, they could die of exposure in a matter of hours.
Stay awake for Papa, okay? Okay, Michel?
Since first light, the Colombian Air Force has been searching for the crash site without success. With each passing minute, the 4 survivors, all gravely injured, take one step closer to death.
Michel!
Shortly after daybreak, the crew of a Black Hawk chopper spots the crash site.
I could see the helicopters perfectly from where I was at, and even though I could see them perfectly, I didn't know if they could see me.
When I saw the helicopter very close to the trees, to the top of the trees, I started moving the blanket. I started moving the blanket, then so I said, oh, they saw me, they're coming for us.
More than 8 hours after impact, and after enduring life-threatening injuries and near-freezing temperatures, the survivors of Flight 965 are about to be rescued.
People finally know that we're here, and they're finally here to rescue us after so many hours of being stuck on that side of that mountain. So seeing them was one of the greatest things ever.
They came and they throw a rock, and the people start to descend. And I was so happy because I feel that they're gonna help us. The first thing I told them, my son is alive. My son is alive, but I don't know where he is. Help me to find him, please help me to find him. And my daughter is alive, I told them. She's inside the fuselage.
As the rescue team divided up, one went into the fuselage to free Michel. Another scoured the site for Gonzalo Dusan Jr. Gonzalo is found hanging in the branch of a nearby tree. He's been suspended in the air above the crash site for more than 8 hours. His condition is grave. Mauricio Reyes is the first to be airlifted off the mountain. But low cloud cover grounds the chopper and delays the removal of the remaining survivors. Fearing that Michel Dusan may not survive the weight, volunteers decided to take a calculated risk. They fashioned a makeshift stretcher out of a piece of the wreckage and began to evacuate Michel off the mountain by foot. Shortly after Michel Dusan left the crash site, the weather clears and the remaining survivors are airlifted to a base camp halfway down the mountain,
and then to hospital for emergency medical treatment. More than 13 hours after the crash of Flight 965, Michelle Dusan is the last survivor to emerge from the jungle of El Diluvio alive. Surgeons attempt to save the life of her brother, Gonzalo Jr., but he dies on the operating table from massive internal injuries.
I don't think that there is any medical explanation or scientific explanation. There is no explanation. That out of 159 people that were strong and like tough, that me, a little girl, a 6-year-old girl, could survive out of so many people that were so much stronger than me. I just thank God so much.
Of the 163 passengers and crew on board Flight 965, only 4 survived the crash. Experts will later label the accident a non-survivable event. All of the survivors were seated within 2 rows of one another, just above the wing. Huge girders carrying the wings make this the strongest part of the plane. Despite this, Mercedes Ramirez lost both her parents on her 21st birthday.
December 20th, 1995, my life changed forever and has never been the same ever since. There was 160 people on that flight who, the moment that plane hit that mountain, all their hopes and dreams were instantly lost. But for some reason, I've been given a second chance at life, and so I'm going to try to make the best of it.
The successful evacuation of the survivors led to the gruesome task of recovering the bodies of the 159 souls who perished on the slopes of Mount Diluvio. Investigators now descend on the crash site to try to find out how one of the most sophisticated airliners, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, could veer off course and crash more than 35 miles from the airport. The investigation was led by Aeronautica Civil, Colombia's equivalent of the FAA. Assisting the Colombians were investigators from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, including Dave Ivey.
The wreckage and debris report indicated that the airplane actually impacted the eastern side of the mountain as it was trying to proceed back west to get into the valley. And the main body of the wreckage cleared the mountain top, or the ridge, I should say, and landed over on the western side, which is inside the valley area.
Also following the investigation was Dave Simon, an airline captain who knew the Cali approach well.
In the days that followed the crash, the industry was shocked. They were shocked because they didn't know how could a sophisticated airplane like the 757, flown by a well-respected international carrier like American Airlines with well-trained crews, get so far off course. Nobody could figure out how did it happen, why did it happen.
Sabotage and mechanical malfunction were soon ruled out. Attention began to focus on the action of the flight crew. The discovery of the black boxes enabled the investigators to follow the final moments of American Airlines Flight 965.
There is never one single item or error that typically brings an airplane down. There's an error chain, and a chain is made up of many links. The airplane was en route to Cali. As they were approaching from a distance out, the controller offered them a straight-in landing.
Are you able to approach
runway 19er?
Would you like to shoot the 19 straight in? Yeah, we'll have to scramble to get down. We can do it.
When they first accepted the approach, the first officer remarked that we do need to get down in a hurry in order to accomplish this.
Yes, sir. We'll need a lower altitude right away, though.
At the time the crew accepted the approach to runway 19, they were too high, too fast, and too close in to safely make this approach.
To lose altitude, the first officer deploys the speed brakes. This action will come back to haunt the flight crew in the final segment of the flight.
The fact that they accepted that runway put the crew in a rushed and hurried manner.
Maybe at Tallulah, first of all. You want to go right to Cal or to Tallulah?
I thought he said the Rosso 1 arrival.
Yeah, he did. We got time to pull that out?
The flight crew now needs to study the approach charts and reprogram the computer. Meanwhile, the airplane is moving at more than 5 miles per minute.
And when you start to rush and you can't prepare in an adequate amount of time, then additional errors start to occur.
Because they're rushed and in a hurry and scrambling, they then make a dangerous request.
Can American Airlines 965 go direct to Rosso?
And then do the Rosso arrival, sir.
Affirmative. Take the Rosso 1 and runway 19er.
When the controller said affirmative, take the Rosso 1, he meant use the Rosso 1 arrival procedure, although the crew thought he meant to go direct to Rosso.
That's not a good idea, because to proceed direct to Rosso is the last point just before the runway. And Rosso is the last point before landing, not the first point that you should be targeting. And this miscommunication really dealt with the pilot believing one thing and the air traffic controller believing another. That was another link, in my view, that was part of the error chain.
Where are we?
The crew looks at their charts in front of them, and they see the fix Rosso, and it is identified by the letter R. So they naturally put R into the computer, thinking it will take them directly to Rosso.
The computer offers a list of R's to choose from, but unbeknownst to the pilots, none of them is Rosso.
Habit has shown, and the system is designed to place the one that is closest to your airplane first. And so here was an R that showed up first, and he selected that.
A map display in front of the pilot shows the proposed course to the waypoint he selected. It will take the plane left into the mountains.
According to American Airlines procedure, prior to executing an input such as this to select the R, you confirm with the other pilot, does this look correct to you?
965, 9,000 feet.
This clearly was not done. If it had been, they would have seen a dotted line showing a provisional path from the nose of the airplane, turning and going back to about their 7 o'clock position.
Captain Tafuri hastily presses the execute button.
In aviation, we call that fast-fingered Freddy. When you don't confirm anything, you're in a big hurry to punch something in the computer, and you don't confirm where it's really going to take you.
Yeah, it's a left turn.
Yeah, I gotta identify that fucker, though.
Unfortunately, the crew does not know that R stands for another fix that is 132 miles away behind them at about their 7 o'clock position, and that's where the airplane starts to go to.
The flight crew of American Airlines 965 has unwittingly directed their aircraft off its intended course and into mortal danger.
Where are we?
The plane was simply doing what it was programmed to do. In this case, it's to fly to Bogota, 130 miles away.
More than a minute into the turn, the pilots are unaware that the plane is flying away from Cali and is heading dangerously off course.
The first officer's getting the charts out, the captain's getting the charts out, they're trying to tune radios. No one's flying the airplane, no one's watching what happens, and they assume that the automation is going to take care of them. Sometimes it will, but in this case it didn't.
Where are we? We're going out to...
Let's go right to Tallulah, first of all, okay?
Yeah, where are we headed?
17.7 ULQ. What's with the ULQ? What happened here?
There's an old saying in aviation, never point an airplane someplace that your brain hasn't been 5 minutes earlier.
The American 965, distance now?
What did you want, sir?
Distance DME?
In this case, the airplane got in front of them. It was flying what was selected. And in fact, it was flying beyond the pilot's recognition of where it was supposed to be traveling.
The pilots had lost what's referred to as situational awareness.
Left turn, so you want a left turn back around
Nah,
to
hell no,
ULQ.
let's press
Well,
on
we're pressing to where, though?
Tallulah.
That's a right U.
Once they became unsure of their position, once they became confused and disoriented, that's the time to click off the automation and to basically abandon the approach, climb to the minimum safe altitude, and to go to Cali.
Right. Let's go to direct to Cali.
Niner 65 altitude?
Instead of abandoning the approach and gaining altitude, Flight 965 continued its deadly descent. When the warning sounded that the plane was about to crash into the ground, First Officer Williams disengaged the autopilot within 1 second, but forgot to retract the speed brakes which had been deployed earlier.
965, this is Cali approach.
Can you hear me?
According to the official report, had they remembered to lower the speed brakes, the plane could have cleared the mountain with room to spare.
This accident is known as a CFIT accident, which means controlled flight into terrain. By that I mean the airplane was controlled by the crew, and it was a perfectly normal functioning airplane, and the crew flew the airplane into the mountain. It's one of the leading causes of accidents over the last 100 years, and still is a problem.
Both these pilots were experienced pilots flying the 757 for American Airlines. And both these pilots were good pilots. And I think it's like anything else. Two good pilots were led astray by a problem that they were trying to figure out. And at the time, they failed to do the basic thing, fly the airplane.
A court eventually ruled that the pilots of Flight 965 had shown willful misconduct during the approach to Cali Airport. Survivor Mercedes Ramirez, who lost both her parents, continues to deal with the crash.
I think this was a classic textbook case of everything you should not do when flying a plane. Hopefully it's a wake-up call to pilots that no matter how many times you've flown to a city, you just have to be alert and aware, because every little move that you make, you have the lives of people in your hands.
A 1,000 meters above the frigid North Sea, disaster strikes. A helicopter is crippled in the middle of a sudden storm. The pilots struggle for control as it sinks helplessly towards the sea. They're far from land, off the radar screens. No one knows exactly where they are. In the days that follow, investigators search for the truth hidden in this tangled wreck. The cause of the crash shocks those involved and reveals a hidden danger that reaches far beyond the North Sea.
3,000. Right here. We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Even our aero crew 603. We are in an emergency.
The need for oil drives men to some of the most unpleasant places on Earth. This is one of them. The North Sea divides Britain from mainland Europe. It's a shallow sea, and the cruel winds that race across it can whip up enormous waves. The sea is cold, grey, and violent. But there's oil out here, and so dozens of drilling platforms and thousands of men must face whatever the weather throws at them. The only efficient way to get the men out there is by helicopter. The flights are rough and long, up to 500 kilometers each way. After years, the trip has become largely routine, the danger below forgotten by many.
What was that?
But on a cold January morning in 1995, 18 men flying over the North Sea were faced with a horrible question.
Mayday, mayday, mayday! Tail rotor failure! Ditching!
Could they survive in this extremely hostile environment?
Oh, God!
January the 19th, 1995. Commander Ced Roberts and First Officer Lionel Sole work for Bristow Helicopters in Aberdeen, Scotland. Their job is to ferry oil workers out to the oil platforms in the North Sea. By mid-morning, they've completed one trip already and are getting ready to head back out. Their helicopter is Super Puma 56 Charlie. While it's being checked out and refueled, Flight Officer Sole checks the flight logs, and Commander Roberts goes through the weather reports, which are updated every 2 hours.
Oh, weather's okay. Good for January.
This is where they're heading, the North Sea. The discovery of oil here in the 1960s was a shot in the arm for the British economy. Brent crude, as the oil is known, is a light, sweet crude, ideal for turning into gasoline, and its price is a benchmark on the international oil market. It helped turn Aberdeen, the Scottish port city closest to the oil rigs, into a boom town, the European oil capital. All the leading oil companies have offices here. The city is focused on getting the black gold ashore. Because the rigs are so far offshore and the weather so unpredictable, helicopters are the only way to reliably ferry workers back and forth. Hundreds of thousands of people make the trip every year. The Super Pumas are one of the workhorses of the North Sea oil industry. Used around the world by industry and military, they're durable, tough, and made to withstand the elements. There are more of these helicopters flying offshore here than anywhere else in the world. The passengers heading to the platforms today gather in the heliport's departure lounge. They all work for the Texas company Marathon Oil. The North Sea has scores of oil fields. They're divided up between several countries, including England and Norway. The governments then sell the rights to drill to a variety of oil companies. Marathon operates 3 platforms in the so-called Bray field: Bray East, Bravo, and Alpha. North Sea oil platforms are like cities that never sleep. They stand on the seabed, held up by enormous legs made of either metal or concrete. Below each one, pipes snake out to the seabed. Some punch straight down, others fanning out at an angle for up to several kilometers. The same platform may be extracting both oil and natural gas at the same time. Out here, you're surrounded by the sea, with nowhere to go. The weather is often horrible, and the work on a rig can be rough, dirty, and dangerous. It's difficult to find and retain the skilled workers needed to pull the oil from the sea, so the platforms are built to keep the workers happy. Movies, internet cafes, gym equipment. even great food are all provided by management to ensure the men are entertained. During 12-hour shifts, workers handle heavy equipment and deal with great heights or great depths. But there are strict rules too. To protect the safety of everyone on board, there's no drinking, and smoking is severely restricted.
Mayday. Explosion and fire on the Piper platform. All personnel abandoned.
One of Britain's worst disasters happened in the North Sea oil fields. In 1988, on Occidental Petroleum's Piper Alpha platform, the gas exploded and set fire to oil.
–
167 men died. The potential for disaster is never far away. But on this January day, the Marathon oil workers prepare as they always do. All 16 are scheduled to spend 2 weeks on Marathon's Alpha platform, followed by 2 weeks off. To these men, getting to work has become routine. But getting a ticket on this flight calls for something a little out of the ordinary. None of them is permitted to board a helicopter without first going through this: helicopter underwater escape training. Their lives may depend on knowing how to get out of a submerged helicopter or oil rig, and knowing what to do once they find themselves in the chilly North Sea. Several accidents over more than 20 years have driven home the point. Training may help a worker survive. Before they set off on every flight, they must watch the video, how to behave if there's an emergency on your flight.
Brace impact.
They've seen it all 1,000 times.
In an emergency, if time does not permit, just tighten your lap strap and brace for impact. To exit through the windows, pull the red tab to completely remove the rubber seal.
The passengers fasten their survival suits. Made of Gore-Tex, these dry suits won't keep them afloat, but are supposed to keep the water out if the workers are thrown into the sea.
Obstruct the forward windows.
Their bright colors are also designed to make rescue easier. The trip to the Bray Alpha oil platform is 230 kilometers. If all goes well, it will take little more than an hour. Then, 120 miles out, they'll reach an area called the Gate. That's where all the helicopters split up and go their separate ways to the individual oil platforms. Bray Alpha is about 40 kilometers from the Gate. For part of the journey, the radar operators at air traffic control in Aberdeen won't be able to see them.
The reason why we lose low-level radar coverage out over the North Sea is, in essence, because the Earth is round. As a helicopter's flying outbound to an oil rig, it's actually following the curvature of the Earth.
But radar pulses travel in straight lines, which means that as they travel further and further away, a gap opens up between the surface of the Earth and the radar waves.
If an aircraft flies into that gap, then it'll disappear from radar. In the case of Aberdeen, a helicopter operating about 2,000 feet will disappear into that gap at about 80 miles.
It's a black hole, which Super Puma 56 Charlie is now entering. The helicopter and the 18 men on board are over halfway to the rigs, and from this moment on, no one knows exactly where they are. 56 Charlie is a Super Puma helicopter serving the North Sea oil platforms off the coast of Britain. It's halfway through a long flight carrying 16 passengers to the Bray Alpha oil rig. The crew is getting concerned about what they see on their weather radar. The forecast called for scattered clouds, but the weather is changing fast.
What do you think about this cloud?
It's quite thin.
Yeah, but look, we're getting some cumulus too. It's quite small, about 100 yards across.
Yeah, but it's developing a bit.
Cumulus are puffy white clouds like balls of cotton wool. They're beautiful to look at and usually harmless. They only last between 5 and 40 minutes. But helicopter pilots prefer to go above them if possible, because the air inside and below gets very bumpy.
Let's try to climb above it. Go to 5,000 feet.
Right. Oh, look, there's a line of them. All along the route exactly where we're going.
Yeah, we're not gaining anything by this.
No.
Let's drop back down to 3,000 feet.
Right.
So far, the weather is nothing to worry about. But over the North Sea, it can change suddenly. This corner of Europe is where the warm winds from the Atlantic meet the icy blasts from the Arctic and Siberia. The warm water vapor condenses into clouds, cools, then sinks. It creates strong winds, pushing the huge masses around. The friction caused by this motion can make the clouds electrically charged, and that electricity can be released as lightning. What starts out as a placid day can end up in a violent storm. It's now 1 hour after takeoff, and 56 Charlie is approaching the gate, the point where helicopters begin their descent to the individual oil platforms. They're 25 miles from their destination, and the weather is starting to get worse.
Bray traffic, 56 Charlie, 120 miles on the 056 HMR.
They make contact with Bray Traffic Watch, located on one of the oil platforms. It handles all the comings and goings of helicopters. But Bray Traffic doesn't have radar. It has to rely on the pilots to tell them where they are.
Leaving 3,000 feet, would you take the flight watch?
Roger, 56 Charlie, I have your flight watch.
Aberdeen information, Bristow's 56 Charlie at 120 miles. Leaving 3,000 feet, Bray has the flight watch.
Roger, 56 Charlie, continue with Bray traffic.
Quite suddenly, the weather has changed. Instead of the harmless fluffy balls of cotton wool, a line of dangerous cumulonimbus clouds is now blocking their path. They rise up like huge white mountains, more than 10,000 meters, far higher than the chopper can fly. Underneath, they're dark and menacing. Pilots try to avoid them at all costs. Inside, gusts of wind can reach up to 100 kilometers an hour. The turbulence can make the flight unpleasant, but that's only part of the danger.
The cumulonimbus, that's the granddaddy of all clouds. It stretches from around about 1,000 feet at its base all the way up to 28,000, 30,000 feet. They are the most dangerous clouds that aircraft can come across, particularly small aircraft like helicopters. Within a cumulonimbus, you're going to find severe turbulence, you're going to find icing, you're going to find heavy rain, and of course you're going to find lightning. If you're flying a helicopter, that's not where you want to be.
Lightning is one of the most powerful forces of nature. Around the Earth, it strikes an average of 100 times per second, each strike with a power of up to 1 billion volts. Aircraft can't completely avoid it. On average, every passenger jet will be hit once a year by lightning, but the design of the planes helps prevent them being badly damaged. Their bodies are traditionally made of aluminium, which is a good conductor of electricity. The lightning passes harmlessly along the fuselage and exits from the tail. Helicopters use the same type of design to keep safe, and helicopters need it in the North Sea. With such stormy weather and so many helicopters, lightning strikes are inevitable. As they begin their descent, the Super Puma enters the line of clouds that stands in their path.
Bits of cloud coming up here.
It's okay, it's still green. Let's carry on through that.
Green on the weather radar means there's rain, but it's not heavy enough to worry about.
What the pilot sees in that is actually simply like a television screen. On that television screen he has a map, and overlaid on top of that map is a series of banded colours. If there's no rain, he has a blank map. If there's lots of rain and it's heavy, he has lots of red squares on that, and that gives you the idea of the intensity and the location of the rainfall.
On board 56 Charlie, the weather gets more intense. They begin to get pelted by hail.
Hey, where'd this come from?
It's coming in through the vent.
like being inside a beanbag swamped by polystyrene balls.
It's so thick. How come the engines are still running? There can't be any air left out there.
No.
Now another problem.
We've got a hard over on the ice detector.
It's probably just an ice pellet stuck in the probe.
Right.
The helicopter has an ice detector, a probe outside the craft, which is supposed to tell the pilots whether there's ice on the blades. But they think it's become jammed with ice and is giving a false reading. And then, disaster.
Bloody hell.
What was that?
Lightning, I saw it. Oh, this is bad. There's something very, very wrong with this. We'll have to go down, I'm afraid.
The helicopter has been damaged, but they don't know how badly. The entire body is shaking and vibrating. The crew's first instinct is to get down to a lower altitude in case the worst happens and they fall out of the sky.
Mayday, Mayday, 5-6 Charlie, lightning strike, severe vibration. Mayday, Mayday.
40 kilometers away, another helicopter is about to leave an oil platform. Commander Brian Backhouse is loading passengers onto 5-6 Bravo and preparing to fly back to Aberdeen.
That's everyone. All set.
Suddenly, the loading officer hears Lionel Sol's Mayday call on his radio.
Mayday, Mayday, 5-6 Charlie, lightning strike.
Hear that, Mayday, 56 Charlie!
Gentlemen, my apologies, but we have to disembark you. We have an airborne emergency on a sister aircraft.
Backhouse hurriedly unloads his passengers. He intends to help if he can. Meanwhile, a gale is steadily building up, with winds in excess of 70 kilometers an hour. The seas are mounting. The crew of 5-6 Charlie are struggling to keep control of their crippled helicopter. After the initial flash, though, the situation hasn't got worse. The Grampian Freedom is a standby ship positioned near the oil rigs to give oil workers a way to escape if anything goes wrong. Her skipper, John McInnes, hears the helicopter's distress call.
We increased the speed to full speed ahead. Everybody was informed about the vessel and told to get ready for survivors to be taken aboard.
Back on the Bravo platform, what was a routine flight for Brian Backhouse is about to become a rescue mission. He intends to find the stricken helicopter and nurse it to safety. If it crashes into the sea, he'll direct rescue ships to the spot. But they're not sure where to go.
Let's go to the gate and proceed from there.
At least they have a starting point. The Grampian Freedom doesn't know where to go either. They're getting conflicting messages about where 5-6 Charlie is. The helicopter's tiny size and the rough seas make it hard to find. On the damaged helicopter, Commander Roberts briefs the passengers.
Gentlemen, you are obviously aware of the severe vibration. We've had a lightning strike, so please pull up your hoods, zip up your suits, and prepare for a possible ditching.
Countless hours of training is supposed to have prepared all on board for a moment like this. In a real emergency, how many will remember it?
1,200 feet, we're still flying. Let's try to make it a Bray Alpha and land there.
Their destination, the Bray Alpha platform, is now only 11 kilometers away. 3 minutes have passed since the explosion, and things don't seem to be getting any worse.
I'll just try a few small inputs, make sure everything's working. Yes, we've got control in pitch, we've got control in roll, and we've got control in yaw.
Tail rotor!
The helicopter is beginning to spin round, a sure sign that something's happened to the tail rotor. The only thing the pilots can do to stop the spinning is to switch off the main rotor blade.
Power off, engines off.
Ditching has become inevitable. .56 Charlie is falling fast, more than 600 meters a minute, with the main rotor acting like a kind of parachute, the blades being turned only by the air that rushes through them.
rotor failure, ditching. Brace for emergency landing.
At this speed, they're about 40 seconds from hitting the North Sea. The other pilots in 5-6 Bravo are searching in vain. There's no sign of 5-6 Charlie in the sky or in the water. Then they hear another distress call.
Mayday! Mayday! Tail rotor failure! Ditching!
Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Relaying for 5-6 Charlie. We have a suspected tail rotor failure. He is ditching.
Commander Backhouse in 5-6 Bravo knows that he is closest to the stricken helicopter. Everything depends on him. But he's not equipped to locate the distress beacon 5-6 Charlie will use when it ditches. All he can do is search mile after mile of grey sea. Back on the Grampian Freedom, the crew begins searching the sea as well as the sky. But they know 5-6 Bravo can cover ground more quickly than the enormous, slow-moving ship. They do what they can and wait for better directions.
Floats, floats, I can't find the floats! I got it! Just keep it at trim angle. Right.
The pilots of 5-6 Charlie are about to attempt one of the most difficult maneuvers, ditching or landing in the middle of the heaving sea. Floats under the helicopter are meant to keep it from sinking. If they're deployed too soon before touchdown, the chopper may lose what little stability it has and topple over. Too late, and they won't inflate completely. Instead of riding the waves, the helicopter will sink below them. There's no second chance. They time it perfectly.
We're down. Seems quite stable.
They've landed safely, but no one knows if they will stay afloat. Helicopters are top-heavy, and they fear it could keel over and sink at any moment.
Let's get out of here! To the door!
They need to get the life rafts out, inflate them, and board them quickly. They fear that if the helicopter rolls over, it will trap them all inside.
Lift that end! On the rope!
You go back and help with the evacuation. I'm going to shut things down here. Right. I'm going to try one last Mayday call.
But the evacuation doesn't go smoothly. When they throw out one of the life rafts, the strong wind blows it back against the helicopter. They can't get into it.
Can't get this one down. Can we go on the other side? It's better we all stay together anyway. Off you go! Go on! Go on! Go! Go! Mayday! Mayday!
5-6 Charlie. We are on the water, floating, manning the dinghy.
He doesn't mention their position.
Make room! Get set! Make room!
The raft is dangerously overloaded. There are 18 on board, and it's only meant for 14. Water is already up to their ankles and rising. Once in the raft, they have no way of communicating where they are. For the first time, the pilots are able to see what caused the disaster. The rear rotor blade assembly and gearbox have broken off and are hanging down the side of the helicopter, held on by just a couple of pipes. No one realizes it yet, but in the rush, they've forgotten to bring the distress beacon with them from the helicopter. It sends out a signal that can be picked up by rescuers. Forgetting it could mean the difference between life and death. 2 ropes attach the life raft to the helicopter. They're meant to stop the raft from drifting away, but they'll also drag them down if the helicopter sinks. One of the passengers has a knife.
Shall I cut the line?
No, not yet. We have a better chance of being spotted if we're close to the helicopter.
Problems mount. The passengers are trying to raise the canopy to protect them, but it gets stuck. Without the canopy, they're at the mercy of the waves. And then the helicopter itself becomes a danger. When the doors were jettisoned, they were supposed to be designed to slip down into the water and sink. Instead, one of them, which has a jagged edge, is floating on the surface, and it's heading straight for the raft. The life raft has been punctured by the floating door.
Come on, Bill! Bill, with everything you got, we're gonna sink!
No, don't worry about it. We're not gonna sink.
We've got double-layer rubber tubes here filled with air! It cannot sink!
One wave and we're under! No!
The pilots do their best to put on a brave face.
There are other helicopters and ships out there! They know we're down! They heard our Mayday!
The overloaded life raft is getting lower and lower in the water. Inside, it's already waist deep. Now the pounding waves are pushing them beneath the sharp edges of the drooping helicopter blades.
We need to get some distance! We'll have to cut the line!
There are supposed to be 2 safety lines connecting the raft to the helicopter. One short, one long. But the long line is broken.
The long line's been cut! It's been shredded!
You'll have to cut the short one!
The short line is the only thing attaching them to the helicopter. If they cut that, they'll quickly drift away, a tiny raft full of men at the mercy of the sea. But if they don't cut it, the jagged edges of the helicopter could tear their life raft to shreds and sink them all. 18 people have scrambled aboard a life raft after their helicopter crashed into the North Sea. The raft is overloaded. It's been punctured by the jagged metal edges of the helicopter door and is getting lower and lower in the water. They have to get away from the helicopter. Flight Officer Lionel Soule takes the fateful decision and cuts the rope. They begin to drift away into the storm. The conditions are deadly. Most of their survival suits are leaking freezing water. For a person in the water, hypothermia can begin when the temperatures of air and water added together is below 50 degrees centigrade. In the North Sea in winter, the temperature is far below that. Normal muscle and brain functions are quickly affected. The core body temperature will sink, followed by unconsciousness and death. Their chances of rescue are slim. No one knows where they are, just a tiny dot on a vast, turbulent sea.
Quiet! Quiet! I hear something!
There's a helicopter!
The men are desperate. This could be their last chance.
Quickly! Pass me those flares! The flares! In the pocket behind you! Spot a flare, you flying bastard! Here it is! We're over here!
But it's all in vain. The helicopter passes by. The men can't believe it. Their only hope is gone. On 56 Bravo, Brian Backhouse can see only grey seas. But suddenly, his co-pilot spots something.
Contact. Right. 2 o'clock. Okay, Roger. Let's investigate. Target. Contact. Target confirmed. 56 Charlie. Stand by for position report.
Like a guardian angel, 56 Bravo hovers directly above the survivors for over an hour, directing rescue boats and aircraft towards this tiny speck in the ocean.
He came in and hovered fairly close because he wanted to count the number of people on board the life raft. So for a while he was right over the top of us and blowing us around a bit. But as soon as he'd got the information he wanted, he backed off and he was just marking the position for the rescue craft to find us.
First to arrive is the Grampian Freedom.
We had lookouts posted all around the vessel, some on top of the bridge, on each wing of the bridge. A helicopter came and he started crisscrossing our bow, which is not our procedure in that kind of situation.
Almost a mile away from the raft, the Grampian Freedom launches its fast rescue boat. The boat sets off at full speed to the rescue. The rain and waves make finding the raft difficult.
Hey! There's a boat! It's coming! No, don't think us!
Relax, boys, they know what they're doing! Let's go! Quick,
The rescue boat throws a lifeline to the stranded men, and they begin pulling themselves to safety. But there's another challenge ahead their training hasn't prepared them for.
We reached the standby boat, and you're looking at the hull, a huge steel hull. You said, I'm never going to get up there. But the crews are well trained. They wait for the swell to go up and down in the right motions.
And they have a large net hanging down the side of the boat. And they said, we're going to come alongside, we'll be on the top of the wave, and when we shout jump, you jump and grab the net. Don't look back, because we'll be gone. We came alongside, high up on the wave, grabbed the net, the wave went back down, they were away, and they pulled off. And we just climbed the last few feet over the side onto the Grampian Freedom.
Later that day, a rescue helicopter winches up 14 of the survivors and flies them back to Aberdeen. 4 of the men, however, never want to travel in a helicopter again, so they refuse to leave the Grampian Freedom. They're in for ever more misery. They're buffeted by a force 10 gale the whole of their long journey back to Aberdeen. Through their skill and against all the odds, Cedric Roberts and Lionel Sole have saved the lives of all on board.
I must admit, at the time, I did think that was it, we were going to die.
The whole world had changed from being really good to being what I thought was a complete disaster at that time. It was the worst situation I'd ever been in the air, and I was very worried that that was going to be it.
But the day after the accident, they came under suspicion. Their report on what happened starts being questioned.
Lightning, notionally at least, should not affect a very powerful North Sea helicopter.
This is the first time I can recall a lightning strike having ended up with this kind of conclusion.
The experts are skeptical of the pilot's story. No other helicopter is known to have crashed into the North Sea because of lightning. Perhaps there had been some mechanical failure. There were even whispers of pilot error, of recklessly flying into storm clouds. The evidence to support their story was now beneath the waves with 5-6 Charlie. The Air Accident Investigation Branch, Britain's air crash detectives, begins searching for the truth. It may look like a rig, but the stay dive is actually a ship, mostly used for servicing oil platforms. It has 9 powerful engines which keep it stable in almost any weather. And it carries miniature submarines for underwater exploration. A day after the accident, it's brought in to find and raise the missing helicopter from the bottom of the North Sea. The investigation gets off to a good start. Within a day, the television cameras on board the Stay Dive's 2 submersibles locate what's left of 5-6 Charlie on the seabed. But raising it is a different matter. They carry on working into the night. Soon, several pieces of 5-6 Charlie have been recovered, but still not the vital clue, the missing tail rotor. Ed Trimble was the AAIB's lead investigator.
But the big problem was to recover the tail rotor assembly. Without that, the investigation was literally going nowhere. We knew that the tail rotor assembly had been dangling over the side of the pylon as the helicopter had ditched, and it therefore detached at some point between the ditching and where we had caught up with the main wreckage.
Keeping the Stay Dive going would cost another £20,000 a day. Ed Trimble rang his boss.
He was fairly skeptical of our chances. He asked what I thought our chances were of finding the tail rotor, and I, being an eternal optimist, I said 80%, to which he replied, I think you'd be very lucky if you've got a 10% chance of recovering the tail rotor assembly in the North Sea.
Ed Trimble stays up all night, relentlessly monitoring the underwater cameras.
I didn't want to be in a situation where we would have missed any evidence of further wreckage, and in particular, any parts of the tail rotor assembly.
Go get yourself a coffee, Eddie.
And by the time 8 o'clock was looming, I decided to go down to the galley to get a coffee. And I couldn't have been away any more than maximum 7 to 10 minutes when I suddenly heard these tremendously excited shouts from our team.
Yes, Eureka, we found it!
As I walked in, I ran in, there, and smack in the middle of the screen was the whole of the tail rotor assembly. And even at the first glance, I could see that one of the tail rotor blades showed clear evidence of a lightning strike.
The crew was right. The submarine's cameras reveal telltale burn marks on the tail rotor blade. A close look at the wreckage on the deck reveals that 2 of the main rotor blades were also struck by lightning. But it's this tail rotor that suffered the most damage. Since lightning is not known to have forced a helicopter to crash into the North Sea before, the question is, why now? Ed Trimble called in lightning expert John Hardwick to discover just what had hit 5-6 Charlie.
What we wanted to do with this set of tests was to take a set of tail rotor blades from the Super Puma helicopter and subject them to varying energy levels of simulated lightning strikes.
The lightning objectives at Culham basically were to try and reproduce the degree of lightning damage in order to identify what kind of level of energy was associated with this particular strike.
This home video of the tests was taken by Ed Trimble. Representatives of the company that makes the Super Puma were there too. Hardwick ran the blade through several lightning strikes until he was able to reproduce the damage found on the rotor blade. To do it, he had to generate a simulated strike of enormous power. Something far more dangerous than anyone thought the helicopter would be exposed to. Something that wasn't supposed to happen over the North Sea.
There have been a few incidents over the years, minor strikes, a little bit of damage to the helicopter, but we never expected anything as severe as happened on that day.
For one brief instant, it was more than all the electrical power being consumed in the entire United States. Some 30 billion watts. And this enormous flash of lightning had happened over the North Sea, where each year almost 3 million passengers fly unsuspecting to the oil platforms.
The helicopters we fly are certified to the highest standards. It's the same as you get on a major airliner flying transatlantic. So we had no reason to believe that any lightning we had encountered would do any severe damage to the helicopter.
Ordinary lightning wouldn't. But this wasn't ordinary.
A lightning strike generates a huge pulse of energy. We can detect these pulses of energy via multiple transmitters and receivers that are situated throughout Europe. The information is calibrated locally, and once the position has been triangulated, that's passed to the Met Office in London.
When the records were examined, they showed something very peculiar. This is what they think happened. Inside cumulonimbus clouds, tiny ice crystals are swept upwards by the wind currents. At the top of the cloud, where it's much colder, they combine with other crystals to form hail. The hail, being heavy, plummets back to Earth. On the way down, it hits the rising water crystals, causing friction. The crystals become electrically charged.
On that particular day, there was very little in the way of indication that there was any significance in these clouds.
We're flying along, everything just seemed very normal. We went through what seemed to us, by comparison to what was around that day, a fairly small cloud. But there was suddenly a lot of snow and ice pellets in the air.
I've never seen as much in the way of soft hail pellets in my whole flying career. And the worrying thing was that immediately we knew that obviously there was a high level of energy in that cloud to produce that amount of soft hail. which also meant there was a high chance of there being lightning there. But by that time, it was too late.
When a helicopter enters the cloud, the sharp tips of its whirling rotor blades cut through these crystals, causing more friction, more electricity, until it's all released in a blinding flash. The records showed that the flash which hit 56 Charlie had been the only one recorded over the North Sea that day, caused almost certainly by the helicopter itself. However, for some reason, nearly all the damage had been confined to the tail rotor. What was it about the tail rotor that had made it especially vulnerable? Then Ed Trimble made a remarkable discovery. When the civil aviation authorities certified the Super Puma as safe, they had missed something important, something which may have caused 56 Charlie to fall from the sky. Safety investigators examined the wreckage of a helicopter which crash-landed in the North Sea. As they study the ruined aircraft more closely, they uncover the cause of the accident. When the British Civil Aviation Authority laid down the Lightning safety standards, they were looking at fiberglass blades, then the normal material for helicopter rotors. But in the 1980s, plane makers began using the new composite materials, like carbon fiber, which were lighter and stronger. In particular, they began making the rotor blades out of carbon fiber instead of fiberglass. It was assumed that the same standards would apply equally to the new blades. In the industry, that's known as read across, and it's very dangerous. In fact, it was the very design of these composite blades which brought down 56 Charlie. Although made of carbon fiber, composite blades have a metal anti-erosion strip glued on to protect the edge. That's where the trouble starts.
Carbon is a conductor of electricity, but it's 1,000 times worse than aluminium, so you get 1,000 times as much heat produced.
The carbon blade gets very, very hot. And when the current meets the metal strip running along the edge, there is furious arcing and sparking, until finally part of the erosion strip explodes. As little as 100 grams of the erosion strip flew off, but it was enough. Without its weight, the rear rotor was unbalanced. That's what caused the vibration felt on board 56 Charlie immediately after the lightning strike. 3 minutes later, when Lionel Soule tested out the controls, the unbalanced blades put the tail rotor under enormous stress. The bolts holding it on snapped.
We've lost the tail rotor!
Tail rotor's gone!
It was like a blowout in a car, only much, much worse. Things at that point were really very, very worrying. We both knew what had happened. We'd lost the tail rotor. And if you don't do exactly the right thing at that point, your life expectancy is very short. It's seconds. We had to do the right thing. We managed to point it into wind, and there was quite a big sea building up. And at 100 feet, I pulled back on the stick to flare the helicopter, slow down its rate of descent, and we were very fortunate at that point. A nice friendly wave came along, and as I leveled the helicopter, a wave came up. We sat on the top of it, and we went down, and it was one of the best landings I've ever done, but that was luck more than judgment.
As bad as it was, it could have been worse. The two hydraulic pipes connecting the assembly to the helicopter did not break.
These two small diameter pipes had held the mass of the gearbox and tail rotor assembly dangling over the right side of the pylon.
Without the weight of the rotor assembly, the helicopter would have tipped forward.
Had that tail rotor gearbox and tail rotor assembly completely separated from the helicopter, then all 18 lives would have been lost, because the helicopter would have pitched down irrecoverably and gone into the North Sea.
The investigators found the answer to the mystery of a helicopter crash, but they stumbled across a bigger problem, one that affects every air traveler. Investigators believe that 56 Charlie's violent end was caused by a savage lightning strike greater than anything it was built to withstand. And when the lightning hit, it exposed a problem in the carbon fiber blades that made them vulnerable. The tremendous heat created where the carbon fiber met the metal erosion strip could occur again. And the same type of violent reaction could hypothetically take place in any aircraft that has carbon fiber mixed with other materials. Increasingly, aluminium is being replaced with carbon fiber. The world's largest plane, the A380 Airbus, for instance, has over 20%. What will happen if these planes encounter a monster lightning strike? This was the investigators' biggest concern arising out of this Super Puma accident. The findings were unexpected and treated with some skepticism. Though the tests indicated that an unexpectedly large lightning strike hit 56 Charlie, Britain's Civil Aviation Authority refused to accept it. No action was taken to increase the safety standards that these helicopters must meet.
I thought that the reaction was poor. There seemed to be a real reluctance on their behalf to accept the evidence.
If Britain's air crash detectives are right, there is a real concern facing air travelers. Flashes of lightning far greater than aircraft are supposed to encounter are possible. And aircraft made of newer composite materials are at increased risk. For the Super Puma, though, the lessons have been learned. The design of the rotor blades has been vastly strengthened. The erosion strips are now secured with heavy bolts, and pilots have been instructed to give storm clouds a wider berth. The men who must fly these machines to work are prepared to accept the risks.
Well, I think the morning we ditched, we were very, very fortunate because the outcome could have gone horribly wrong. But we survived, we got home. My feelings of that morning was this could never happen to me. Now, when I fly in a chopper, especially in the winter time, if it's going to be buffed about with wind, I sometimes get in the back of your mind, this can't happen to me again. But we've all a choice. We've all a choice either to stop or we carry on. And I'm still there 25 years later, still learning and living.
The crash of 56 Charlie was a hair-raising incident that could so easily have ended in tragedy. In the winter of 1995, the skill of Commander Ced Roberts and Flight Officer Lionel Soule saved the lives of their 16 passengers. Roberts and Soule receive an award for their work. The Guild of Air Pilots and Air Navigators recognized their skill and bravery in the emergency landing.
Although we received a number of awards after the incident from various organisations, one thing I received, which is far more precious to me than any of them, was from the daughters of one of my passengers. It was this little card. It says, "Dear Captain Roberts, I can't tell you how much I need to thank you after you saved my dad's life. It took a lot of effort to try to keep calm while you were falling. If you hadn't have got that helicopter in control, my dad maybe wouldn't be here today. Thank you very, very, very much."
A 737 is in trouble. The pilots blinded by rain. In the cabin, government officials and influential businessmen. The crash of IFO-21 shocks the world. Did a final act of war bring the plane down? The White House demands answers. This was no ordinary flight, but a military jet carrying American politicians. When the investigation is over, the Air Force itself is held responsible. Wednesday, April the 3rd, 1996. A raw spring day near the city of Dubrovnik, Croatia. Rain pelts the runway at the city's airport. A small group of diplomats hurry through the storm, trying to keep dry. They're part of a delegation that's just touched down. Among them, the Croatian Prime Minister and the American ambassador to the region, Peter Galbraith.
The flight into Dubrovnik was a scary flight. We couldn't see anything at all. At that point, I'd been ambassador to Croatia for nearly 3 years, and I'd done a lot of shuttle diplomacy, and it certainly was one of the most uncomfortable.
The weather that made Galbraith's landing so bad isn't letting up. In fact, commercial flights into Dubrovnik have been cancelled. But the ambassador and the others aren't waiting for a commercial flight. They're here to greet IFO-21, a US Air Force jet on a delicate mission. The plane is a specially designed 737. The Air Force has a small fleet of these jets to transport high-profile guests around the world. The cabin has everything needed to do business and politics 10,000 meters in the sky. Today, the cabin is filled with what the military call DVs, Distinguished Visitors. This group is led by United States Secretary of Commerce, Ron Brown.
Ron Brown was a very smooth, capable individual. He was a Washington insider. And he had all the skills that go with that.
Brown is a star in the Democratic Party.
I obviously will do everything that is possible.
He played an important role in getting Bill Clinton elected president. Under Clinton, Brown was appointed the first African-American Commerce Secretary in the country's history.
The United States companies that are here today are eager to engage in dialogue with government and business leaders, and more importantly, to do business.
Today, that job has taken Brown to one of the most troubled areas in the world. For 4 years, civil war ripped Bosnia and Croatia apart. But just a few months ago, an uneasy peace began. As Commerce Secretary, Brown is helping to rebuild the local economy.
Ambassador thinks we should.
The philosophy behind it was that the peace would not be durable unless there was economic progress in the region, that was really critical to the peace.
Brown's 3-day tour started that morning in Tuzla, Bosnia, where the group toured an electrical plant and ate hamburgers with American troops stationed there.
Being a former Army man myself, I know what being away from home is like, so we thought we would bring a little bit of home to you.
The final stop on today's tour is the ancient coastal city of Dubrovnik. Before the war, it was a vital part of the country's tourism industry.
It was my idea that Ron Brown should go to Dubrovnik. The Croatians were very eager to get the word out that Dubrovnik was still standing and that it was still a tourist destination. So I thought it would be very useful to have Ron Brown and the delegation go there.
But on this damp day, Dubrovnik is not at its best, or even visible. Fog presses down from the sky, obscuring the city and the beautiful Adriatic coast. To the north of Dubrovnik flies IFO-21. Its pilot is Captain Ashley J. Davis. His colleagues call him AJ.
Departure, IFO 21.
IFO 21.
From the cockpit, Davis can see some clouds ahead that he wants to avoid.
I'm left here just a couple of miles for a build-up.
IFO 21, this is approved as requested. Climb and maintain flight level 160.
Up to 160 now. IFO 21.
It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. AJ Davis and his crew have been on the go since dawn. While the cabin of this plane is built for comfort, the cockpit is virtually identical to a standard issue 737. AJ Davis grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and dreamed of being a pilot. He made it and has been on the front line of American military efforts. In the past, he flew Midair refuelers high above the Persian Gulf. But now he pilots diplomats and other officials from around the world. It means a lot of traveling and a lot of time away from his wife and 2 children at Ramstein, an American base in Germany. According to the Air Force ranks, Shelley Kelly is a technical sergeant. Today on IFO 21, her main job is to make sure the passengers have everything they need.
Mr. Secretary, something to eat.
No, thank you. I was wondering how our times look.
The diplomats are expecting to arrive in Dubrovnik by mid-afternoon, but they've been running late all day.
I can check to find out for sure if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you. Early would be good.
As the plane nears Dubrovnik, AJ Davis calls the United States Air Force Weather Service for an update.
Metro, IFO 21, how copy? Over.
IFO 21, copy loud and clear. Weather for Lima Delta uniform as follows. Rain. Sky conditions 500, broken. That would be ceiling. How well do you copy?
Metro, IFO 21, copies. Yeah, we've been in it all day. Are you expecting any changes in the weather?
Pretty much continued rain, over.
Copy. Rain. Thanks for your help. So, let's see the sights at Dubrovnik.
Only 4 months after a peace treaty was signed, the skies over this part of the world aren't guaranteed to be friendly. Planes are still required to fly in certain highly restricted lanes. While he's aware that there are flight restrictions, Davis has never flown in this part of the world before. As he nears the Croatian border, he gets an unexpected warning.
IFO 21, this is Magic 51.
Magic is the call sign for the peacekeeping airborne early warning aircraft that watches air corridors like a traffic cop.
Be advised, you're leaving an approved corridor. Please reroute immediately.
Davis isn't off course. He's flying the exact route he had planned. But without knowing it, Davis and his plane are flying out of approved airspace. They're flying into potentially dangerous territory.
You're leaving an approved corridor. Reroute.
Roger, Magic. Our error. Rerouting now to proper corridor. Over. The second time today.
The approved corridors do change, and Davis and his crew should have been informed. To stay on an approved course, Davis will have to swing out to the west. It's an embarrassing situation that's going to cost them time.
Shelley, AJ, we've been directed to reroute. We'll be arriving about 15 minutes late at Dubrovnik. Apologies to all back there.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I have your attention, please? Unfortunately, there will be a slight delay on our arrival into Dubrovnik.
DVs aren't going to be happy at all. The weather ahead will probably slow us down even more.
Outside his plane, the heavy rain continues to crash down. Flying toward an unfamiliar airport with a cabin full of businessmen and diplomats, Davis has a difficult task ahead. What happens to this plane and its passengers over the next several hours will capture the attention of the world. A heavy rain soaks a small airport in Dubrovnik, Croatia. Headed towards it is a US Air Force 737 carrying 35 people on a trade mission. Leading the delegation, US Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown.
We'll see which path Ambassador thinks we should follow.
Dubrovnik approach, IFO 21, level 100.
Dubrovnik approach, good afternoon. Maintain 10,000 feet for beacon approach. Runway 12.
Okay, descending to 10,000 feet, IFO 21.
The weather is so bad today that commercial flights have been cancelled. As they approach the airport, the rain isn't letting up. But the crew is dealing with more than just bad weather. The recent civil war has taken a heavy toll on Dubrovnik's airport. It had been closed for several years and is waiting for a new landing system.
The airport was totally trashed by the Serbs who had taken over the airport during the '91 war. They really went out of their way for the destruction. They destroyed the instrument landing system. The new one was on order.
Around the world, airports use sophisticated technology to help planes take off and land. Doppler radar warns of incoming storms. Glide slopes help pilots stay on course to land. The devastated Dubrovnik airport has none of that. It doesn't even have radar to see the planes that are coming in for landing. Instead, the airport is using so-called non-directional beacons to guide planes towards the runway. In the aviation world, it's ancient technology.
There are many non-directional beacons used in the United States and throughout the world, but they're an older navigational aid, and in fact, they were on the way out.
The system in Dubrovnik has 2 beacons on the ground, which send out signals to the plane. When the crew receives the signals, they consult their charts and follow the course that will take them to the airport. The crew of IFO 21 is still waiting to hear the first signal when they get a call from the ground.
9A CRO to IFO 21.
IFO 21, I read you, 9A CRO, over.
Another plane, this one carrying Ambassador Galbraith, had touched down earlier in Dubrovnik. The pilot of that plane is an experienced flyer who's very familiar with the area. He wants to let the crew know what to expect.
IFO 21, we landed about an hour ago. The weather was at minimum.
Adjusting the wording to split if you have to execute the missed approach. Over.
Roger, 9A CRO, we read you. Out.
Diverting wouldn't be welcome news for the members of the trade delegation.
The pressures to get the passengers to scheduled news conferences and other activities were probably pretty high.
As Davis closes in on the airport, the Dubrovnik tower calls again.
IFO 21, report level.
IFO 21, 5,000.
IFO 21, roger. Descend to 4,000. Report Kilo Lima Papa.
Down to 4,000, IFO 21.
Sir. Thank you.
Flying above the storm, the crew finally hears the radio signal from the first beacon.
Engage.
At Kilo Lima Papa, we're tracking outbound at 119 degrees.
119 confirmed.
Mr. Secretary, we're landing.
We'll take this up later, Adam.
It's not very broken up down there. I can't see through it. Tim?
The clouds are thick. The crew can't see the ground. They have to trust their instruments as they descend through the storm.
IFO-21. Sir, we are inside the locator, inbound.
IFO-21, roger. Cleared for beacon approach. Runway is wet.
IFO-21.
A.J. Davis flies blind through heavy rain and cloud cover. He expects to see the airport any second.
Pull up! Pull up!
IFO-21, do you read?
Just before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Dubrovnik Tower loses all contact with IFO-21.
IFO-21, Dubrovnik approach, do you read? IFO-21, do you read?
Without approach radar to track the plane, controllers have no idea where it is. Perhaps the plane has diverted to another airport.
IFO-21, do you read?
But as the minutes stretch on with no word from the American plane, local controllers are taking no chances.
Initiate emergency procedures.
Near the end of our shift, we heard about the possibility of a missing plane. We didn't know who was on the plane. We had no details about the flight. For situations like this, there is a certain procedure, and we just waited for more information.
Peter Galbraith is waiting at the airport with Croatia's Prime Minister.
It was clear from my own flight in that this was a very marginal landing. I did not expect them to attempt the landing in Dubrovnik. The Croatian Prime Minister came up to me and pulled me aside and he said, "We've lost radio contact with Ron Brown's plane." I got the State Department Operations Center on the phone and he's asked to activate the U.S. military to start search and rescue activities.
Word goes out to the chain of air traffic control centers.
Američke borbene snage. Jeste li imali nekakav kontakt sa tim zrakoplovom?
But no one has had any contact with IFO-21. The search and rescue effort focuses on the approach to the airport. Perhaps the plane had ditched into the Adriatic.
At the time, I was about 100 miles away. I was in Brindisi, Italy. We launched 2 of our MH-53 helicopters with Special Tactics Air Force personnel on board, headed to Dubrovnik.
For hours, there is no sign of the missing aircraft. The weather conditions are getting worse.
Fog was in, thunderstorms in the area, low visibility.
IFO-21, Dubrovnik approach, do you read?
IFO-21 has a CPI, or crash position indicator, on board.
IFO-21, do you read?
If the plane went down, the CPI should be sending out an ultra-high frequency signal.
IFO-21.
But the Dubrovnik airport, as well as lacking radar, does not have the equipment to pick up the signal.
IFO-21, Dubrovnik approach, do you read? IFO-21, do you read? IFO-21, do you read?
As the hours pass, poor visibility frustrates the searchers.
They arrived off the coast, and they were over water looking for the crash.
Hours after the plane disappears, police respond to a tip. A local villager has seen something on the hill above his house. It's a long way from the coast where the search is concentrated.
We went up with 2 vehicles to check the mountains. The weather was extremely horrible, strong rain and thick fog. So we went on foot for about an hour up that mountain. Then we came close.
It's almost 7:30 at night, 4.5 hours after the crew called for clearance to land. The crash of IFO 21 is finally confirmed. The news races from Dubrovnik to America.
The crash site has been reached by Croatian police, and I've just received word that there's also a Croatian doctor on the scene.
The tail section is the only substantial piece of IFO 21 that's left. Debris and bodies are scattered across the mountain.
These were hard moments as we were walking over the boulders, not knowing if we're going to step on someone's body. These are the moments that you can't forget.
Then, almost miraculously, police make a heartening discovery. Inside the tail section, they find a survivor. It's Technical Sergeant Shelley Kelly.
As we arrived at the tail section, one policeman went inside and found the body of a stewardess, and he tried to help. That was our hope. We wanted to help. We wanted to save every life, and hers was our chance. We were counting on it.
In the darkness, they realize that Kelly needs immediate medical attention if she's going to survive.
When I realized that there was no one to help, I radioed the police central station in Dubrovnik and got them the location of the crash site. By then, it was completely dark.
St. John's Hill is alive with close to 100 Croatian policemen and military. American forces are also rushing to the scene. Enormous rocks and treacherous conditions make the wreck site difficult to reach. But there are also remnants of the recent war. Mike Canavan is in charge of the US crash recovery operation.
I met a Croatian major. He told me that he was going to be the guide that would take us up to the top of the mountain. And at that time, he happened to mention that there were several minefields between where we were and the crash site.
It takes almost 2 hours for Canavan to finally make it up the rocky hill.
We had been walking for some time, and it was very dark. And all of a sudden, I saw something that was darker, and I didn't know what it was. And I reached out, and it was an aircraft engine.
On top of the hill, the weather is making it impossible for helicopters to land. Emergency workers can't wait for the weather to clear. They have to get Technical Sergeant Kelly off the mountain immediately. She has a broken spine and other severe injuries. But if she can be kept alive, rescuers hope she can shed some light on what went wrong. With Kelly off the mountain, the search for other survivors continues. Finally, in the darkness, rescue workers find the body of Ron Brown, the US Commerce Secretary. In fact, as rescuers continue to comb the hillside, all they find are bodies. A.J. Davis and the rest of the crew were probably killed instantly. All the other members of the trade delegation are also killed. As dozens of emergency workers continue their grim search, a call comes from Dubrovnik. Technical Sergeant Shelley Kelly is pronounced dead in the ambulance en route to hospital. No one has survived the crash of IFO 21. A grim spring rain hammers down on the mountains of Croatia. Near the Dubrovnik airport, a 737 has crashed. The jet was an American Air Force's plane on a trade mission through the region. Police and members of the military have searched for survivors, but all 35 people who were on the flight are now dead. Including the American Secretary of Commerce, Ron Brown. In the darkness, the rescuers begin a very different job. Mike Canavan is with the U.S. Special Forces.
Once we realized there were no survivors, the mission changes. It goes from there's no one to rescue. Now you have to recover remains.
By dawn, the weather has improved. Peter Galbraith gets his first glimpse of the crash site.
We walked up the mountain. The weather was somewhat better. And near the top, there was the fuselage of the plane, rear part of it, and debris all over the place. And then on the other side of the ridge were the bodies. There's nothing in the world that compares to a plane crash.
One thing that my folks did on the mountain and then down in Dubrovnik is they did this with dignity and respect. And I thought it was done exceptionally well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President and the First Lady and the members of Cabinet and I wanted to come here to be with the employees of the Commerce Department at this very difficult hour. Hillary and I have just come from Ron Brown's home, visiting with Alma and Michael and their family and friends who are there.
As the truth sets in, the hard questions begin. How had a specially redesigned US Air Force 737 crashed on a hillside in Croatia? Was it simply bad weather? Or in a war-ravaged part of the world, was there another cause?
Purpose of the accident investigation team, I can guarantee you that they will be extremely thorough in their analysis in trying to determine the causes of this accident.
Because of the high-profile nature of the passengers, rumors begin swirling immediately. Howard Swansea is one of dozens of experts assigned to the team.
In every accident, there's always a lot of speculation. In this particular case, you had a high-ranking U.S. government official. And so by the time we had even got to the crash site, there was just quite a bit of media attention around it. And there were fragments, pieces of aircraft miles away from the wreckage. So my idea was to get as much information or collect as much artifacts or physical evidence as I could.
Right from the start, the investigation team is at a disadvantage. They discover that there's no cockpit voice recorder or flight data recorder on the plane. What's standard for passenger jets is not required in the Air Force.
I had assumed that the Air Force and these VIP flights had higher safety standards than commercial flights. And so I was really shocked to learn that the standards were generally lower than those for commercial aviation.
Without the standard tools, investigators can't afford to overlook anything. The wreck is almost 3 kilometers from the airport. How did a trained crew get so far off course? As Swansea examines the wreckage, Nelson Spornheimer is brought in to look at other evidence. An expert in aerial navigation, he plots the plane's doomed final minutes. To trace the last moments of the flight, he turns to the sky and the US Air Force radar plane, which had been patrolling the region.
IFO-21, this is Magic 5-1. Be advised, you're leaving an approved corridor. Please reroute immediately.
Rerouting now to proper corridor. Over.
Apart from heading out of approved airspace, Spornheimer finds nothing unusual about the plane's flight until the end.
The radar track that I was given was from an AWACS aircraft and showed that the en route portions of the flight from about 100 miles prior to the airport were entirely nominal.
The last segment of the flight, however, beginning 20 kilometers from the airport, is different. On their final approach, the plane begins to head off course. They start flying in a straight line, which heads right into the mountains.
My initial look at the flight track of the aircraft showed a 7-degree bearing error in the final segment of the approach.
A small error when traveling at hundreds of kilometers an hour could quickly lead to an enormous problem. But why would the plane get off course at the end of the trip if the rest of the flight showed no major navigational problems? Even in bad weather, how had the crew become so lost? Spornheimer examines the outdated navigational equipment at the airport. Badly damaged during the recent war, perhaps it had malfunctioned. 2 separate navigational beacons are used for landing in Dubrovnik. One guides planes to the runway, the other lets them know if they've gone too far. The first is located on nearby Kolosep Island. It transmits a specific Morse code signal to make it easily identifiable. When they hear it, all Davis and his crew need to do is fly a heading specified on their landing charts. If they do, they should eventually arrive at the airport. The second beacon is located at the airport itself. It's a fail-safe device. If the crew hears the beacon before they see the airport, they have to declare a missed approach and circle around to try landing again. In fact, the plane that brought Peter Galbraith to Dubrovnik just minutes before IFO-21 only landed on its second attempt.
IFO-21, I read you, 9ACRO, over.
Adjusting the verting to
Split if you have to execute the missed approach.
over.
Roger, 9ACRO, we read you. Out.
But after studying the equipment, Spornheimer doesn't believe it played a role in the crash.
Both the non-directional beacons were found to be operating normally by flight tests within a few days after the accident.
There are bizarre rumors of an even more sinister theory. Perhaps Davis was following a decoy beacon put in the mountains on purpose. In a troubled region, was this an attack on the trade mission?
To get a signal that is strong enough to be heard, you have to have a very large ground system, which is difficult to establish in rocky, sandy soil. So it would be very expensive and very time-consuming to set up an NDB in the mountains.
Such an elaborate scheme would be nearly impossible to pull off. No evidence is ever found of a decoy beacon. The investigation continues. In the wreckage of the Air Force flight, investigators discover an important piece of the puzzle. The plane's ADF, or automatic direction finder, is recovered. It appears to be working, but only one of the units had been installed on this jet. To perform a proper landing in Dubrovnik, a plane requires 2 ADFs. The device listens to the signals put out by the land-based beacons, but it can only listen to one at a time.
We're still not past it. I'm tuned back to KLP.
Flying with 1 ADF, the crew can listen to either the beacon which is telling them how to get to the airport, or the beacon which is telling them they've gone too far. They can't do both at the same time.
That would have required 2 ADF receivers in the aircraft, which the accident aircraft had only 1. And only having 1 ADF restricted their ability to follow the approach accurately.
I got CV. We're still not past it. I'm tuning back to KLP.
By quickly tuning back and forth between the 2 beacons, the crew can use 1 ADF to listen to 2 signals. But it would have added stress to an already difficult landing. And it's another surprise. The Air Force jet wasn't adequately equipped to land at this airport.
You're talking in a very short time span of making the approach. It's going to become rather difficult in trying to dial both to keep listening to the code if you're also trying to search for your course and headings.
As he continues to study the path that IFO 21 took, Nelson Spornheimer focuses on an S-shaped curve in the plane's flight. It's the sort of path a plane would take when looking for a signal from a non-directional beacon. But just when the crew should be looking for the beacon signal, the S-turns disappear.
At about 2 or 3 miles inside the final approach fix, for the next 7 or 8, 9 miles, the flight track is perfectly straight.
Instead of trusting the navigational system that was in place, even though it was primitive, the crew suddenly seems to give up. And Spornheimer thinks he knows why. Fighting heavy rain and hampered by a single direction finder, Spornheimer believes the crew resorted to another, even older piece of technology to find the runway, something called INS, or Inertial Navigation System.
An INS system uses gyroscopes to maintain an awareness of how much the airplane turns and banks.
After entering a specific geographical position at the beginning of a flight, an inertial navigation system tracks all the turns a plane makes. It's a self-contained system on the aircraft. But there is a potentially enormous problem. If the gyroscopes don't perfectly calculate every single maneuver of the plane, a pilot can be off course.
It's not very broken up down there. I can't see through it. Tim?
The crew might have thought that switching to this system would help them find their way. But in this case, it might have put the plane dangerously off course.
INS drift in this case was probably, in my view, the primary reason the aircraft ended up where it was.
Investigator Howard Swansea examines the Jeppson approach chart the crew was using as they attempted to land. Hampered by poor visibility and relying on the inertial navigation system, their charts would have been a key aid. But when he takes a closer look at it, he notices something peculiar. A key figure, the minimum descent altitude, isn't accurate. The minimum descent altitude is the height where pilots must be able to see the airport. If you can't see it at that height, you have to abort the landing.
Each country has the responsibility of developing these procedures and then publishing information so that other nationalities as well as their own air crews can fly those approach procedures.
Swansea discovers that the minimum descent altitude on the chart doesn't meet American aviation standards. Given the mountainous terrain, it should have been more than 2,800 feet. But the chart the crew was using said it was just over 2,100 feet. It means that the crew could have flown almost 700 feet lower than experts in the US thought was safe without having to abort the landing. Combined with the other problems the crew was dealing with, the non-standard chart sealed their fate. Struggling to find the airport, they were straining to see through the clouds, assuming they were still safely above the mountains. But why wasn't an Air Force jet properly equipped to land in Dubrovnik? And why didn't the crew have the right landing charts that would have made even a difficult flight safer? The answers are found at an American military base in Germany, with some of the most senior members of the Air Force. In the spring of 1996, a US Air Force jet crashed just outside the airport in Dubrovnik, Croatia. None of the 35 people on board IFO-21 survived. The plane was a specially redesigned 737, but the investigators have found that the crew didn't have the equipment it needed to safely land in the war-ravaged airport, and that the charts they were using weren't up to American aviation standards. To discover why the crew were attempting to land in such difficult circumstances, the investigators questioned Colonel John Mazurowski. He's the operations group commander for the airlift wing in charge of the flight. His job is to provide transportation for a growing number of distinguished visitors. But these are tight budget times. Mazurowski has been told to do more with less.
What I'd like to talk about now is the Jeppesen approach subject.
One of the major focuses of the investigators is the Jeppesen landing charts the crew were using. The charts, drawn up for most major airports, give crews a vast amount of information, including what to do in the case of a missed approach. But investigator Howard Swansea has already found that these charts were not up to US standards.
The Air Force had a directive that required all procedures in foreign countries to have gone through a U.S. or their evaluation process prior to an Air Force crew being able to fly that approach.
Landing at the Dubrovnik airport had not been approved. The Jeppesen landing charts that did exist for the airport had not been reviewed. It's the reason that Howard Swansea found a difference between what the charts said and what was considered safe by the Defense Department. Mazurowski believed that restricting his planes to approved airports would severely limit some of his missions. It takes time to check all the airports out. He had asked for the review to be waived for some airports, including Dubrovnik.
This Jeppesen approach waiver, what caused you to initiate this?
It just seemed like we had been using these approaches for years. Safety didn't seem to be in question.
But the Defense Department waiver was never granted. The approach for Dubrovnik was never approved. Yet even without the safety clearance, the Air Force continued to land there.
IFO-21, level 100.
Dubrovnik approach, good afternoon.
The airport in Dubrovnik was far below modern standards. the charts used to land there hadn't been checked by the Department of Defense. Nevertheless, senior Air Force officials had decided to permit landing at Dubrovnik and other airports they were flying into.
In fact, none of them have been approved in this time frame.
Not to my knowledge, sir. No.
In the end, a fatal combination of factors had come together to cause the crash of IFO 21.
Dubrovnik approach, IFO 21, level 100.
Dubrovnik approach, good afternoon. Maintain 10,000 feet for beacon approach. Runway 12.
IFO 21.
The crew were fighting bad weather. They were landing in an unfamiliar airport, which was hobbled by old technology. The unapproved charts made a bad situation much worse. After an investigation involving nearly 150 interviews, the final report on the crash of IFO 21 exceeds 7,000 pages.
How much of the weeping we have done this last week because there were so many brilliant young people on that plane with him from different backgrounds and different racial groups. Why? Because Ron Brown could see in them the promise of a new tomorrow.
The results of the investigation fault several individuals and institutions. Dubrovnik Airport is singled out for an improperly designed instrument approach procedure. Today, automatic direction finders are no longer needed to land at Dubrovnik. The airport has replaced its approach equipment with the instrument landing system which was being delivered at the time of the accident.
I got CV.
The final report says A.J. Davis and his cockpit crew are responsible for flight errors. And, like a bullet piercing the heart of Air Force operations, leading military figures are blamed for a failure of command. In the aftermath of the report, 2 senior members of the Air Force are relieved of their posts. The Air Force severely reprimands Colonel John Mazurowski for dereliction of duty. He is demoted and eventually retires as a major. 13 other officers are also singled out for their roles in connection with the crash. The Air Force also changed the way it did business. All military aircraft were ordered to carry flight data recorders and cockpit voice recorders. No aircraft is allowed to fly into an airport without approval from the Department of Defense, not even for high-ranking diplomats.
IFO 21. Sir, we are inside the locator, inbound.
IFO 21, roger. Cleared for beacon approach. Runway is 1.
IFO 21.
The Air Force Command was held accountable for the accident. But it's the pilots, the crew, and the passengers of IFO 21 who paid the ultimate price for oversights made by the 86th Airlift Command.